Hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. I'm your host, Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in both Texas and Virginia, and we are here with the ongoing coverage of the Parkland School Resource Officer trial in the great state of Florida. We are watching this trial as it progresses. Scot Peterson is on trial basically for failure to act in so many words. The school shooting itself occurred February 14th, 2018. 14 students and 3 adults died. 17 others were injured. The school shooter himself has pled guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. Somewhat controversially, the jury did not sentence him to death. So controversially, in fact, that Florida has attempted to pass a statute to make non-unanimous death penalty verdicts legal, which I'm pretty sure is unconstitutional, but they're going to try anyway. So that's exciting, apparently, and fun. Moving past that issue, we've got the school resource officer. He is a fully licensed, badged police officer, the same as any other police officer of anyone else. It's just that his duty station is the school, as opposed to being, in a police car or walking a beat or being posted some other location. Police officers get tasked with particular places to do their job. And this particular officer was tasked with doing his job at this high school. This particular high school is 45 acres large with 3,000 students. It's a big place, and he had for 9 years been tasked with being the school resource officer, the cop on the beat, and the beat being the school. He apparently, it has been said, hid behind a car or something else for some extended period of time, but we haven't really heard testimony about that yet. We've heard it alluded to in redirects of various witnesses, but we haven't actually heard anyone testify that, yes, I saw him cower behind a car for 45 minutes, or here's the tape of him cowering behind a car for 45 minutes, or anything else. So far, the testimony has been very emotional in its nature. It has been sort of a rotating band of students, teachers, and some police officers who have testified to various versions of the horror show, which is not necessarily an invalid way to start a case. You get the jury's attention, you make sure they're engaged, you make them outraged, you make them want some sort of resolution, right? So inflaming their passions, not necessarily an invalid way to start. At least for my personal taste, it feels like it's gone on a little while at this point, but that is what they're doing. um Putting aside the strategic issues, because we don't have a full, or at least I don't have a full understanding of the available witnesses and stuff like that, so maybe this is completely a valid strategic consideration. But from an outside observer, not aware of like the full length of witnesses and what they have to work with, um I think it's gone on a little long, and I'd prefer to move on to something else at this point, but that's me. Putting aside the strategic considerations, the tactical considerations, and sort of how they're executing those strategies have been very, very, very good on both sides of the fence. The defense's opening was kind of garbage, as we've discussed, but as to the questioning of witnesses, it's been basically textbook. The the state has been doing a great job in asking their questions and flow of the questions. Sometimes I don't fully understand the point, but that's, okay. But whatever the point is, they seem to be doing a very good job of going about it. So it's like telling a story. It's like the criticism or the analogy is, in this situation, sometimes I they tell a very good story. I just don't understand what the point of the story is. So it has all the marks of a story. It's just I don't understand why we're telling the story, that kind of thing. But that's a minor criticism. That's only been true of like one witness or two witnesses. And where there's only really one witness in particular where I'm like, I don't really understand why they're here at all. But for the most part, they've been very, very good about their questions, very good about getting what they need. Defense lawyer also been very good on cross, perhaps a little bit overexcited sometimes, strays a little bit sometimes into testifying himself in He goes so far with the leading questions that sometimes it's really him testifying. So he really pushes the boundary. Sometimes really pushes it with asked and answered, asking the same question multiple times until the judge, slams him down. But that might be deliberate rather than a mistake, because I've certainly heard lawyers testify or comment that jurors say, "I wish you had said this. I wish you had said this," and it's like I said it, 80 times. So making sure the point gets driven home, I suppose. Perhaps it is deliberate, and perhaps also trying to force the state to object in the hopes that it makes the state look like they're trying to hide something. So, like that kind of strategy, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily playing the way he hopes it's playing. But then again, I'm not in the room, so I'm not seeing the jury and their reactions. So maybe it's playing exactly the way he's playing. I wish we could see the jury. Oh, well, that's not a problem. I'm sure that, Law and Crime will show us the jury's faces again, and perhaps we'll be able to judge from their reactions what they think about situations. So we'll see. That is where we're going. This is supposed to be a 6-week trial, as I understand it. The defendant is facing up to 95 years plus loss of his pension. So some very serious penalties indeed. He's being charged under a statute, as I understand it, that would require him to be a caregiver. I'm not sure that he qualifies as a caregiver within the meaning of the law. And we've also heard from the defendant's lawyer elements about why he shouldn't qualify as a caregiver as a matter of law. That he is not in the role of a parent, for example. We heard some stuff about cross-examination relating to that from other uh, officers who are school resource officers in their own right, and saying, like, for example, you don't normally like just look at them. You don't normally look at the people to see if they're doing well. You don't normally make sure that they can eat. You don't deal with their nutrition, do you? You don't feed them, do you? You know, and it's questions like that just to kind of prove that they're not in a caretaker role. So, fair enough. I'm not sure on the law on this one. I'm not sure that he can be charged under these statutes. So hopefully we'll get further edification on the legal standard as well, because I'm not sure that he qualifies as a caregiver within the meaning of the statute. The state has alluded to trying to use the contract that exists between the school and the police force to have this officer tasked there. They've alluded to trying to use contract as a method of establishing a duty, but they haven't brought any evidence of the contract into the case yet as well. So we don't even have that piece of the picture. So we are missing we have a lot of question marks still in this case. Also, even assuming he is a caregiver, as I've mentioned, it isn't even necessarily clear that he breached his duty, right? So if we're thinking about this, it's sort of standard negligence theory. You need 4 things for there to be negligence. You need duty, you need breach of duty, you need causation between the breach and the damages, and then the damages. All right. So we've got element 4 in spades, right? We've got lots and lots of elements. We got lots of information on damage. Got plenty of that, right? Someone has been hurt. Lots and lots of stuff. Not so much on the other 3 elements, right? We don't really have duty yet. Why is it his problem? We don't even have breach of duty. Assuming it is his problem, did he breach his duty? Execution of your duty is going to depend on the circumstances. It's a 45-acre school. It's 3,000 students. What was he doing? We've heard allusions to the idea that he was cowered behind a car, but we actually haven't heard any testimony about that yet. So what was he doing? I have no clue, because the state hasn't bothered to tell me yet. So I don't know what he was doing. Maybe he was doing something that made complete logical sense. He can't be everywhere at once. I mean, that for damn sure. He seems to be the only officer that was on scene while the shooting was occurring, based on the various testimony. If there were any other officers there while the shooting was occurring, it was only at the very, very tail end. that the other officers were there. So at least for the overwhelming majority of the shooting, and possibly all of it, he was the only one on scene. So he could be doing a lot of things in execution of his duty, and there would be a lot of things that he wasn't able to do. You know, there's only so much one person can do. So we don't have that he was responsible. We don't have that he breached his responsibility, and we don't have causation. We don't have that because he breached his duty, these people were hurt, because obviously the school shooter is the one that pulled the trigger, and so forth and so on. So we're kind of missing the other three elements of negligence right now. We got duty, we got damages in spades. We're kind of hoping to use the fact that someone was harmed in outrage is be like, well, someone must be accountable, and this is the guy before us, which is not exactly great. Oh, sled stream elements is informing us what sled is. That's still on a timer. That's hilarious. Let me fix that up. We don't need to know what sled is. We're in Florida, stream elements. Appreciate your enthusiasm and all. Oh, someone typed the command. Who types the command? Adam. Why are you asking stream elements what sled is? I thought it was on a timer there for a second. Oh, by the way, Alan Parker, thank you very much as well for the gift memberships. I did thank you before the stream started, but because you've been so good to me, I wanted to make sure to thank you publicly as well. And also thank you to Adam Trapp for the gift memberships. It really does help support the channel. You guys make a huge difference. There are a fair amount of expenses with this channel because I want to make everything as good as I know how to make it to be. And your financial support helps me keep going. Plus allows me to eat, which is a real plus since this is now my full-time job. And I do like eating occasionally. That does help. Just a kindly reminder, by the way, that you too can become a member for merely 99 cents. It is literally the least YouTube will let me charge you. You can hit the beautiful join button where the bot will give you the link from time to time. And you can join for 99 cents a month. It is literally the least YouTube will let me charge you. It is designed to be cheap so that it will be accessible to everyone, because I know that for some people, a dollar is, some people really a dollar means a lot to them. So I want to make it as accessible as I can. So 99 cents a month, you too can become an uncivilian and support the channel and further my quest of, eating. And just as a friendly reminder, by the way, if you haven't done so already, if you could take the 30 seconds necessary to retweet the pinned comment and help bring attention to the channel, that would also be super appreciated. Retweeting makes a huge difference. If we get to 1,000 total people watching, I'm going to gift 100 memberships. So please do that, and we'll give some memberships. GG became a member. Thank you for hitting that beautiful, beautiful join button. Appreciate everyone who hits that beautiful, beautiful join button. It's yesterday's tweet? I don't think it is. I hope not. I don't think it is. I created it yesterday, but I don't think it was yesterday's tweet. But let me double check.
Is he following you?
My hat special?
Yeah, see 612. I guess it is 6. I guess it is 613.
After X number of years.
So the date and the thing is wrong.
There's no point in doing anything else because it worked anyway. 1981. I didn't do it.
Time zones are hard. I can't edit the tweet anymore. Let's just pretend that that it doesn't say 612. Let's pretend it says 613. Yeah. Look, I created it when it was like 11 at night. I was tired. I got it wrong. Anyways, Recovery Addict set you here. I'm glad. Recovery Addict is a friend of the channel. Appreciate the support from Recovery Addict. On uncivil law, we've declared that today is actually June the 12th. So please ignore your calendar. As uncivil law God, I proclaim that it is in fact June the 12th. And this is June the 12th in the morning. And if you could retweet the tweet that says it's June 12th in the morning, that'd be great. Thanks.
CF10A. I have Ms. Gomes, Mr. Killer, and Mr. Klinger present for the state. I have Mr. Igarsh present with Mr. Peterson, who likewise is present. We are outside the presence of the jury. State, is there anything that you need me to address before we resume your presentation?
No,
Defense, anything you need me to address?
yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Judge, throughout the trial, there have been a number of objections to things that I've done in opening and on cross as it relates to bringing out testimony that Scot Israel, former sheriff, conducted a press conference where he announced to the world that my client should have gone in to kill the killer, and he left out a colossal amount of material that would have given the public a different view of it. And we believe that at a minimum affected the public's view of the case, and that included the officers who have been testifying and who continue to testify, because they erroneously believed, hearing it from the top, that my client then must have known where the shooter or shooters were located, believed that people were being killed, and he did nothing except cowered it. It affected their testimony, we believe so far. We believe that it will continue to do so. That's one reason why we want to get that testimony out.
What is this? He asked if he had anything else before bringing in the jury. So he wants to raise the issue about him talking about whatever. So
demanding that my client be charged criminally for acts that were nothing more than innocuous and where my client was being of service. And finally, it led to not an internal investigation by
she was standing for a while,
and
and she's like, okay, I'm going to sit down. It's like, you got to commit, babe.
And this is what Keith
Pick one.
Reddick's testimony will be, that the governor then insisted, after this press conference, insisted that my client be investigated. They called it looking into the actions of the officers, but we will be able to show that it was specifically geared towards my client, who was the only one who was charged. All of that is extremely relevant. The state doesn't have to miss it.
How is any of what you just said relevant?
Well, first, we believe because that testimony was out there publicly and these witnesses heard that testimony.
What witness?
Well, the court did not allow us to get into that. I will recall a couple of them to make sure that they say for the record that they heard Sheriff Israel's testimony when he did that. And the
I don't think it's
argument then
testimony.
to the jury is that
You mean
then
a statement
created
to
in
the
their
public.
mind
Testimony is
that
the
they
wrong
weren't there
word
when
here
the
unless
shots were fired.
he
So they
testified
relied
somewhere that I'm
upon
not aware of.
Sheriff Israel to erroneously
Can I turn the
conclude
court
that my
audio up?
client must have
Nope.
known where the shots were coming from.
This is
Because
as
in
good
that
as it
press
gets.
conference, he
Welcome
never said
welcome to
that
the
my
world
client
of
wore the
live
code
streaming.
red, that my client did all the things that we're going to get out, and or that there were numerous people who had confusion over where the shots were coming from. He had an agenda, Judge. He did.
Right, but you're talking about the, number one, the political process process is a separate branch of government. It has nothing to do with here, zero. Number two, there is no
Yeah,
relevance.
caregiver means
to the
parent,
state attorney's
adult
office
household
making a
member,
charging decision. The elected
or
state attorney
other
filed the charges. This jury is not
person
going to be
responsible for a
asked
child's welfare.
anything regarding.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we're trying to force or fold
The
the
only thing this
police
jury's
officer
gonna be
into
asked
this.
is, has the state proved the
Yeah.
relevance of each crime beyond a reasonable doubt, yes or no?
I understand that.
I set my mic
but
at
I led off
20%,
with the
so I
most
turned my
significant
microphone down to
argument that I believe
20%.
that the law permits me to make.
No,
and that
I don't agree with you at
that-
all, sir. And
That,
whatever
that-
you said in your opening statement, that was at your own election, or at your own peril, but you can call Scott Israel to testify about training, I guess, but he can't talk to this jury about what internal decisions were made regarding investigations. It's not relevant.
Judge, let me make sure that I'm making myself clear. First, is the court precluding me from, first, saying that Scott Israel conducted that press conference and first put out all of this information for the public?
Scott Israel wasn't at Parkland, correct? He wasn't there that day.
He was not,
Okay, so what relevance does that have to anything that this jury has to decide?
because if the witnesses in this case, first and foremost, heard Scott Israel's conclusions as they did, and as the public did, and as the families in this case did. But let's talk about the witnesses specifically. If they heard.
I like the lawyer's idea, but he's not
We intend to ask that
arguing
question.
it
I wanted to
ideal.
ask the
He's
other
a little
witnesses.
bit
I need to
sloppy in the
recall
way
them
he's
as
presenting
defense
it.
witnesses, assuming their testimony is, yes, we heard.
Who has
It's a
said
little
that the
scattered.
client heard shots
It's not
at
as
the building
tight
and
as I'd like it to be.
respond appropriately? What witnesses testified to that? None of them have.
You're right.
They've all testified to this is what their training was, and quite candidly, their opinion about the way your client behaved or didn't behave is, again, irrelevant. The jury gets to decide that.
I understand that.
So that's why I've been sustaining the objections. None of this is relevant. Relevancy is anything that will allow the fact finder to make a decision on any issue that they have to decide. Nothing that you've talked to me about so far today is anything that the jury has to decide.
If witnesses hear the press conference that Scott Israel gives, and they then utilize that for their belief as to
You
what
keep
occurred.
saying that, but what witness? I think you're talking about witness credibility or bias. I'm not
Yes.
sure, but so
Yes.
what witness has been biased?
I
Or
would-
what witness's credibility is at issue because they heard a press conference?
Well-
Specifically, give me a name, sir.
I have yet to be able to ask that question of either, there have been three witnesses that I'd like to ask that question, and I would recall Schroy, Heinrich, and Burton, and ask them if they heard that press conference prior to ever giving their depositions in this case, which would be the facts. And that does influence their testimony, because they're coming in here and concluding that my client must have heard the shots.
They didn't, no
They
one
didn't
said
say-
that, and you didn't ask them that, sir.
Judge, they're not saying it, but our argument is, by implication, that's why they feel so strongly against my client. They're willing to say that you gotta move towards the sound. And when I say, well, you don't know where the sounds are coming from, you know, what do you do
Mr.
then?
Igars, that's something you can make in a closing argument. No witness has been asked or answered any question regarding their evaluation of your client's training or their evaluation of your client's behavior. They have been asked and they have answered questions and they have testified about their own training and their own behavior.
I'm talking about facts, Judge. Sheriff Israel will testify that all he said was, he should have gone in to kill the killer.
He's not going to testify in front of this jury about that because I'm not going to let him.
But if we can prove, and thus make the argument, that as a result of that, witnesses heard those statements and that they factored that into the analysis of my client prior to testifying.
Witnesses aren't, Mr. Igars, these witnesses aren't giving their analysis about anything. Detective Polo testified to what he did, and then we watched his body camera, and it showed what he did. On that day, February 14, 2018, what media event he viewed or didn't view afterwards couldn't be less relevant to his testimony.
By implication, all three, Heinrich, Schroy, Polo, and Burton, all, we believe, gave testimony suggesting erroneously that my client should have continued to move closer to the sound, believing them. They all believed that that could have been possible. And they only believed that because Sheriff Israel gave that press conference.
Which is exactly the reason why we don't let witnesses give their opinions about anything. Fact witnesses testify about facts. Expert witnesses can testify about an opinion. If the jury believes them to be an expert, they can listen to their opinion or disregard their opinion. But fact witnesses testify about facts.
I think the judge is probably right.
They're
I mean,
fact,
I'll
Or at
let you
least
proffer
it's
whatever you
it's
want outside the
let me
presence
put
of
this
the
way.
jury. I'll
The
send the jury
judge's
out.
ruling
You ask the
is
witnesses
legally
whatever questions
defensible.
you want on appellate review if this doesn't go your way. And if it turns out that I'm mistaken in that decision, then I guess the District Court of Appeal will let me know that. But no one can talk about a media event or why a charging decision was made or any political motivation for anything, period.
so just so we're clear, and we can move on, the court over my objection is precluding me from calling Scott Israel to testify that this is what he said during the press conference, that my client should have gone in and killed the killer.
I'm not gonna give you a advisory opinion as to anything. You can call whatever witness you want. If it's something that we need to proffer outside of the jury, then I'll send the jury out and you can ask the questions however you see fit.
I just wanted to avoid bringing him in if the court's not gonna even let me get into these areas, right?
I will let you put it on the record, sir, but not in front of the jury. Look, I'm looking at the preliminary jury instructions. This is 16.5, neglect of a child with great bodily harm, permanent disability, or permanent disfigurement. Number one, the defendant willfully or by culpable negligence failed or omitted to provide said victim with care, supervision, and services, or the defendant failed to make a reasonable effort to protect the victim from abuse, neglect, or exploitation by another. Two, in doing so, the defendant caused great bodily harm, permanent disability, or permanent disfigurement to the victim. Three, the defendant was a caregiver for the victim. Four, the defendant was under the victim, was under the age of 18 years of age. That's it. That's the only thing the jury's being asked to decide. So tell me how Scott Israel's opinion about anything is relevant to any of the elements of the crime charge.
Because when he gave that press conference, Judge, it was literally a week after this had occurred. The facts were not out yet, and when he came...
Sir, the facts are being put out in this trial. Whatever happened before June 5th, 2023 is not relevant to this jury. And they didn't hear anything about it.
But if
And they said they were putting all that aside.
If it impacted, I'm not talking about the jurors, I'm talking about if witnesses who are testifying in this trial, if they were to testify, that they did see that press conference, and then as a result of that, believed that my client must have known where the sounds were coming from.
Sir, you're repeating yourself. I understand.
Thank you very
You're
much,
closing on-
Henke.
But I
Have you
can't,
even
For that
asked the state
contribution.
witness yet?
Florida
Do
law
you
says a
think Deputy
public
Peterson
school owes a
responded
general
correctly?
duty of
Yes or no?
supervision to
You
students
asked
placed
him
within
that.
its care.
Correct?
Okay, fair enough.
not these witnesses who,
Right.
again, heard information that I
Well,
think...
how do you know that? Sir, that's your entire argument, which
Are
I
you
find
a-
no merit in, is exactly the reason why we don't try these things in the media.
Are you
We try
allowed-
these things in court.
Are you allowing me then to ask witnesses if they heard Sheriff Israel's press conference?
Not in front of the jury. Tell me, when we get done with each witness, if you want me to send the jury out and you want to proffer their testimony, if I hear what the questions and answers are, and I think that it's relevant and it's admissible, then we'll bring the jury back in and then you can ask your questions.
Will the court permit me to call Sheriff Israel to say that he never contacted my client to find out what he knew?
Tell me
about?
why that's relevant. Why is that relevant to this jury?
To determine what Sheriff Israel, the leader
Well,
of...
who cares what Sheriff Israel determined? He didn't file the charges. Do you think the state attorney's office ever files charges that the law enforcement doesn't agree with, or vice versa? Do you think there's times when law enforcement wants charges to be filed and the state attorney's office chooses not to do so? You're talking about different branches of government, sir.
There's a
This
difference.
is
No,
very
they're the
basic.
same
There's a
branch of
difference
government.
what the court may believe,
But
either in this case
We'll
or in
press,
other
we'll
cases.
press past
I
that
don't
mistake.
believe anything, sir. I'm the referee. All I do is apply the rules.
And/or what I'm capable of arguing to this jury, which to my core is not just a symbolic defense argument, is what I believe. And if I can't ask about Sheriff Israel and the fact that he had a plan to throw my client under the bus, okay? In this instance, I could say that he didn't speak with my client even though he had his personal cell phone.
Yeah, they're
that he
both
then held a
executives.
press
Yeah,
conference after initially
yeah.
defending my
The
client under
judge
office,
misspoke on that
and that
one,
he announced to the world that my
but that's
client
okay. We'll forgive him.
didn't go in to kill the killer, erroneously suggesting that he knew where the killer was exactly when the shooter was there. And then when a parent asked him about it, instead of correcting the record, he then said, yeah, you're right, he's a coward, we don't know why he didn't go in. Making that parent believe erroneously that he was responsible for her daughter's death when my client wasn't even there.
All right, let me
when her
mute
daughter
this
was
for a
killed.
second so I can just talk to you about what they're talking about. So I'll rephrase this so it's a little bit clearer what's going on in case you're missing some of this. So what he wants to do is that the sheriff at some point gave a press conference, obviously after the shooting occurred, because it would have to be, right? The sheriff gave a press conference. During the press conference, basically said in so many words that the defendant is a super bad person. What the what the defense lawyer wants the ability to do is ask the cops on the stand, hey, did you hear the press conference from the sheriff that says the defendant is a super bad person? Is that influencing your testimony in some way? And the judge is like, no, that's irrelevant because they're fact witnesses. They're being asked about the facts, right? They're not being asked about their conclusions. They're being asked about the facts, which, yeah, they're not. They're not being asked about their conclusions. They're being asked about the facts, right? The cops that are being called are being asked about the facts. What did you do? What did you see? What did you observe? What did you hear? Right? They're not being asked about their conclusions. They've never been asked, do you think the defendant is a bad person? Because that's not a proper question, right? So ask the defense wants to say, hey, did you hear the press conference? Did that affect your conclusion? The judge is like, what conclusions though? They're not giving conclusions. Yeah, but it might influence their testimony in some other way. But they're being asked about the facts. And you can cross-examine them as to the facts, right? You can cross-examine as to what they saw, heard, observed, did during. You can ask about the facts. So if you think the facts are wrong, you can say, hey, that's not true. You didn't really see, hear, do that. Is it true you're a lying liar who lies? You can do that. But you're asking you're asking me to let the jury hear about this statement from the sheriff that can't possibly have influenced them in this domain because they're not being asked about their conclusions. So your request is basically denied. And he's like, okay, what happens if I call the sheriff? Well, I'm not going to give you an advisory opinion, but I'm not going to let you do it. I'm not going to tell you that. It's like, okay, can I ask these witnesses? Like, look, if you really want to do this, then we can do a proffer. Okay, a proffer is also called an offer of proof. It's the same thing, basically. So what you do is it's a perfectly valid procedure, right? So it's a way of preserving the record, right? It's a way of preserving the record. So the judge has said, okay, the witness can't testify about that. Well, okay, the Court of Appeals doesn't know what's not on the record because the Court of Appeals bases off the record. The Court of Appeals doesn't call witnesses, right? So if the judge never lets the witness testify, how are they possibly supposed to know what the witness would have testified to, right? So it's like, aha, we have created a solution to this problem, right? We call it a proffer, an offer of proof. It's like, okay, we'll exclude the jury. You can bring in your witness. You can ask him any question you want, and then if I change my mind about it being presented to the jury, then you can bring in the jury and they can hear all that testimony again, no problem. If I don't change my mind and say, no, the jury's not hearing any of that, then it's on the record. So the Court of Appeals knows all about it. So if they think that I did a bad, now they know what the witness would have testified to so that they can analyze whether or not I did a bad. But I think the judge is right. I think at least let's put it this way. The judge's judgment is not overturnable. If the judge had gone the other way, maybe that would also be defensible. But the judge's rationale makes perfect logical sense. There's nothing for me as a court of appeals to do about it. So, hopefully that makes sense and explains that. Did I get an air fryer yet? No, not yet. If you want to buy me one, if you want to buy me an air fryer, you can send it to my P.O. box, which is available on my Linktree page. So I think I think the judge's rationale is right. I think the judge's rationale is the better call. And yeah, so I think the judge is right. So hopefully that explains all that. The decision is no. He can't offer the testimony. The decision is no. Stop. No, the decision is no. Go away. Which is the correct decision, or at least the legally defensible decision. Yeah, I know the tweet says 6:12 a.m. We're just going to stick with it. There's no way for me to fix it now, and I don't want to recreate the tweet. You know, the only way for me to fix the tweet at this point is to delete the tweet and create a new tweet. But I already have 35 retweets, so we're just going to press on and pretend. If I get excess air fryers, I'll just resell them and turn them into cash, which I'll then use to buy other things. So don't worry about that part. Feel free to send your Amazon purchases my way.
Jurors entering.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Come on in. Once you're back in those seats, you all may be seated. All the parties may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you using your notepads, I'll give you a moment to get the notepads back
I
out.
like how the cameraman is pointed nowhere near the jury box at this point. So someone got a memo.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you had a nice night. When we pressed pause on the trial yesterday, we were in the middle of the state's presentation. We're going to resume at that point. State, when you are ready, you may call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. It's time to stand call Detective Danny Christian. And I'll be asking to admit an exhibit, and I'd ask for the TVs to be down.
The TVs have to be off.
Yes, Your Honor.
Court Deputy Unit, we're going to need the TVs off, please. Sir, if I can have you come all the way up here to the witness stand, please.
Good morning.
Once you reach it, before you have a seat, you can just stop and look at me, raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. And sir, once you're seated, if I can just scoot that chair all the way up as far as it will go. Can you please state your full name and spell your full name?
My name is Detective Danny Christian. The last name is spelled Krystyan.
D-A-N-N-Y?
Correct.
Mr. Kilburn, you may inquire.
Thank you. Detective Christian, where do you currently work?
I currently work for the Broward County Sheriff's Office. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for approximately 22 years, and I have a total of approximately 27 years of law enforcement experience. I'm currently assigned as a crime scene detective, and I've been with that unit for approximately 9 years. Prior to that, I was a road patrol deputy, and prior to that, I was an officer at Waverly PD in Waverly, Ohio.
Now, back on February 14th of 2018, were you assigned to the crime scene unit at that date, at that point in time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in regards to what occurred at Marjory Stoneman Douglas, were you tasked with doing anything specific
Yes.
with the building?
I was assigned as the lead forensic detective for the first floor of Building 12 in the Marjory Stoneman Douglas campus.
Did all of the work that you conducted take place in regards to the first floor?
Yes.
Now, as a crime scene detective, what were you tasked with in February 2018 for the 1200 building at Marjory Stoneman Douglas?
So as a forensic crime scene detective, our job basically is we have three primary goals. Number one is to document the crime scene. So we do that in numerous ways. What we'll do is we'll take photographs, generally first thing that we do. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to take some 360 photography, which is kind of like when you're buying real estate and you kind of put you in the middle of the room and you can kind of look around on your computer screen to see everything in perspective. The other things we're gonna do is if it's applicable, we're gonna take aerial photography. We'll do that with either a drone or a helicopter. So those are different ways that we'll document the scene. And we'll also take measurements of the scene if we need to as far as documentation. And we're gonna notate where all the evidence is. So that's something that we can recreate a crime scene later on if we need to.
In terms of the actual physical evidence, what do you do with, let's say, for instance, shell casing?
So normally we would document it photography-wise, then at some point we would collect it. And then after we collect it, if it needed be, we'd process it, and then we'd have it ready to present to trial.
What do you mean by process it?
So in some cases, we may be looking for fingerprints or DNA. So if that's the case, we would, that's what we consider processing if we're looking for a particular type of substance on the evidence. And in many cases, it'll be either DNA or fingerprints.
In this particular case, when you were tasked on the first floor, did you take photographs of the first floor?
I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Uh-oh. Okay, no, I thought the feed stalled there for a second. Okay.
You may.
Detective Christian, I'm showing you what's been previously marked as 2C or CC for state's identification. Can you please take a look at that? Detective Christian, do you recognize these nine pictures?
I do.
Are these a true and accurate representation of the photographs taken at 1200 building of the Marjory, Stoneman Douglas campus on February of 2018?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in state's 2C, which is a composite of 9 photographs, in as state's 29.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, states 2C for identification will now be in evidence as State's Exhibit 29, a composite exhibit of 9 photos.
Your Honor, permission to publish?
You may.
And the cameras, I'm sorry, the TVs in the back are off, correct?
Court Deputy, everything's off, correct?
Detective Christian, I'm now showing you what's now in evidence is states 29. Do you recognize this photograph?
I do.
And what is it of?
This is building number 12, Marjory Stoneman Douglas. This viewpoint is basically east looking west, and that is the east side of the building 12.
Now showing you the second picture. Is this a closer up of that, what we were just looking at?
Correct.
Now, are you familiar with, is the annotator working, Your Honor? It is, correct. Can you mark the main hallway, the doors to the main hallway? You can actually circle it on your screen there. So that's to the main hallway to where the classrooms are.
Correct.
And the door to the right, tan in color, what does that mean?
That's access to the stairwell.
Now showing you the third picture there. Is that additionally, or what is this?
That's also the doors that access the hallway into the classrooms.
Now, from this photograph, it appears as if there's a glare in the 2 window slats. Did you actually see these window slats in person? When you
Yes.
took the, could you see through them?
They were slightly tinted, so not real good.
Now I'm looking at the fourth picture. What is this of?
All right, guys. I
The
will
same
be right
same
back.
image, just
Talk
looking
amongst
from
yourselves. Be
west
nice.
to east and looking out toward east. The same doors.
In the photograph, can you see the cars outside?
Yes.
Now I'm showing you the next image and focusing on, do you see the room number associated with this photograph? It's a little, might be a little blurry.
Yeah, I don't think the room number came out. I can refer to my map.
I can show it to you in person if it helps. Your Honor, may I approach a witness?
You may.
believe it's,
Detective Christian, can you see it on the actual photo itself?
Yeah, 1216 is what I thought. it was gonna be.
1216, is
Yep.
that on the east side of the building or on the west side?
It's more closer to the east side, yes.
In this photograph, do you see shell casings?
I do.
Where are they located? Can you just circle or highlight the location of?
Yeah,
where
so there's
the
quite a
casings are?
few. There's,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll
oh.
go back to the pencil, I apologize.
there we go. There's some here, some here, some here. Some there, some there. And I think there's a few over here too, in here.
In total, how many shell casings did you recover from the first floor?
So I collected a total of 70 fired casings from the first floor.
Given that you collected 70, how do you keep track of where you find them? How does that work?
So when you're dealing with a large crime scene like we did, the hallway is almost right around 200 feet. So what we had to do was break that hallway down into compartments to help us process that scene and make it a little more manageable. And in case we have to reconstruct the crime scene, we need to put all the evidence back to exactly where we found it. So that helps us with measurements and different ways of putting the evidence back. So what we did is we knocked it down into quadrants. So we did 20-foot quadrants in the hallway, and we marked them 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, all the way up to 110, going from west to east. Okay, so that helped us narrow down a quadrant where the evidence was collected. That way, when I testify, if I say quadrant 1-6, we know that's in that particular area of the hallway. 33s.
And these were collected from quadrant
1-8.
1-8, which is the farthest of the left circle now.
Correct.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Detective, I'm now showing you 2G, or GG for identification. Do you recognize this?
I do.
And is it in the same or substantially the same condition as it was when you recovered it back in February 2018?
Yes.
And what is it?
These are the 12 fired casings from quadrant 1-7, and then there's one live round that was also recovered from quadrant 1-7.
And where's 1-7 located?
In this area right here.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in 2G or GG into evidence of states 33.
3. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, states 2G for identification will now be in evidence. That is State's Exhibit 33.
And Detective, same question as before, why are they vacuum sealed in different?
Again, these are
portions?
the manufacturer. I just divided them up in manufacturer and make. So LC17, PMC, LC12, FC7, these are just different manufacturers. That's why I divided them up that way.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Detective, I'm now showing you it's been previously marked as 2H for identification. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Is that in the same or substantially the same condition as it was when you recovered it back on February 14th of 2018?
Yes, sir.
Can you speak up?
Near?
Both.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that in the same or substantially the same condition as when you recovered it back in February of 2018?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will request to move in states 2H or HH into state and as states 35.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, states 2H for identification will now be in evidence. That is State's Exhibit 34.
Detective, did you already mark on the screen which quadrant this came from?
I did. Quadrant 1-6.
And same with the seals or
Yes.
different?
There's different manufacturers.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm now showing you it's been previously marked as states 2I or II for identification. Can you take a look at that?
Yes.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, these are the 3 fired casings I collected from quadrant 1-5.
Are they in the same or substantially the same condition as when you recovered them?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will request to move into I or II into evidence as states 35.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, states 2I for identification will now be in evidence. That is State's Exhibit 35.
And you just circled around the area that
Correct.
says 0, 1, 2. Is that correct?
1-5 is the, yeah, 1-2 is the number on the
On the
screen,
map.
but quadrant
Yeah, on the
1-5, correct.
Sorry to everyone for whatever the technical problems were there. I don't know if that was my fault or not. Probably. But either way, I apologize for it being like
Detective, I'm now.
off for like 5
Your
minutes
Honor, may I
straight.
approach the witness?
You may.
Detective, I'm now showing you it's been previously marked as 2J or JJ for state's identification. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Is it in the same or substantially the same condition as it was when you recovered it?
It is.
What is it?
This is a fired casing collected from quadrant 1-4.
1-4. Can you show where 1-4 is?
I can. Sorry.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in states 2J or JJ into evidence of states 36.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, states 2J for identification will now be in evidence. That is State's Exhibit 36.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Detective, I'm now showing you what's been previously marked as for state's identification
I
purposes
appreciate
as
your
2K or
patience.
KK. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And what is it?
This is the fired casing collected for quadrant 1-1.
And where's 1-1?
That would be right next to the west side doors.
Oh, can you just,
Yeah, absolutely, right there.
Your Honor, at this time, or is this the same or substantially the same condition as when you recovered it?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will request to move in states 2K or KK into states
7. Defense, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, states 2K for identification will now be in evidence. That is State's Exhibit 37.
Detective, you just described this as 1-1, states 37, and states 36 as being in 1-4.
Correct.
Okay, so there's a gap in between where the,
1, 2, and 1, 3. So basically the restrooms, the bathrooms, and the, close to the, where the teacher's lounge.
can you,
area is.
hold on a second.
Can you
just
explain
mark
why
that
the
area
bullet
where that
casings
was
are
not?
relevant? Not
Right, this
particularly,
area
no.
right here.
I don't know why they're relevant.
Now, when you were on scene, did you also document the deceased individuals on the first floor?
I did.
And how many deceased individuals were on the first floor?
There was 7 that were present when I was there, and then, but a total of 11 were shot on the first floor.
Were shot and killed?
Yes.
In addition to the photographs, the shell casings, the trajectory rods, was there anything else that you personally did on the first floor?
We collected evidence pertaining to the other case, but other than that, no.
Your Honor, if I may confirm. Your Honor, at this time, the state has no further questions for Detective Christian.
Okay, cross-examination, go ahead.
Defense has no questions.
Really?
Is the witness excused?
Yes, Your Honor, I would just like to publish these to the jury.
Yeah, he may step down.
He may
and
step down
You may
to
publish
publish,
the
yes.
exhibits to the jury. Thank you very much, sir. You
Okay.
may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I guess nothing to get out of this particular witness. All right, fair enough.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you just want to take a look at it, pass it to your neighbor till they go all the way around. And again, I'll repeat what I told you previously. This is not the only time that you will see these exhibits. All these exhibits will be with you in the jury room while you are deliberating the case.
To the 250 of you who are currently watching, thank you very much for being here, as always. Do appreciate everyone who helps this channel and helps this channel grow. By the way, congratulations to Legal Mindset for passing 100,000 total subscribers. He's really been hustling lately to make sure he's crossing that mark, and it is a well-earned 100,000. So just wanted to extend my congratulations to Andrew from Legal Mindset for hitting that 100,000. It is a great accomplishment, and you deserve that plaque, sir. I hope you enjoyed as much as I have enjoyed mine. I look at it, it makes me happy.
You're ready to make all your next witness?
Yes, sir. At this time, Your Honor, the state will call Detective Gloria Crespo.
Gloria Prescott? Is that her name? Gloria something. Gloria Prescott? What her name is? Well, she'll spell it for us when she gets on the stand, so I'll correct it then. Also, just as a friendly reminder, one of the best things you can do to help this channel really is to help it grow in terms of its subscribers and reach. And I think the best way to accomplish that objective, although I'm not sure, but I think the best way to accomplish that objective is by retweeting links to help bring attention to the channel. You know, more exposure. And social media, I think, probably helps. So if you share this link to this channel by retweeting the pinned comment, and if you don't have the Twitters, sharing it on your social media of choice or Discord if they allow external links, anything you can do to help bring attention to the channel and increase its exposure, help it grow, would be very appreciated.
If I could have you come all the way up here to the witness stand, please. Once you reach it, but before you have a seat, if you could just stop and look at me, please. Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Please be seated. And once you are seated, if I could just scoot that chair all the way up as far as it will go. Can you please state your full name and spell your full name?
Sergeant Gloria Crespo, Crespo.
Gloria?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Kilburn, you may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant, what agency do you work for?
Broward Sheriff's Office,
Now, going back into February 14th of 2018, what unit were you in?
crime scene unit.
And what was your main responsibility in the crime scene unit?
I was a crime scene detective.
What do crime scene detectives do, in general?
We go to scenes and process scenes,
And by process, you mean? things like
collecting
that?
evidence, photographing, documenting.
So those specific tasks that you were assigned, is that something that you did at Marjory Stoneman Douglas in February of 2014?
Yes,
Were you specifically assigned to a floor in the 1200 building?
I was assigned to a floor and I was also assigned to the hallways.
Okay, and was that on the third floor?
The floor that I was assigned to was the third floor, yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, while you were conducting your job on the third floor, did you see remnants of gunshots?
Yes.
How many gunshot shell casings did you find?
I collected 61 on the third floor.
Did you collect any other on any other floor?
I collected in the stairwell 2.
In the stairwell, on what floor?
It was on the first floor. It was a 1200A was a stairwell on the west side.
Okay. So while you were assigned to the third floor and predominantly did most of your work on this third floor, you also happened to be the crime scene detective at the time that collected the two shells from the west stairwell on the
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'll have to keep the televisions off for a portion of this.
Off. Court
Yes.
Deputy Eunuch, we need the TVs off, please.
Did you take photographs on the third floor?
I did.
Let me ask you, over how many days were you processing the scene at Marjory Stoneman Douglas?
We were there for several days.
Several days. So this wasn't one thing that you just got done on the 14th.
No.
I'm showing you what's already been entered into evidence. It states 22. Do you recognize this diagram?
Yes.
Okay. You're actually able to annotate. You're actually allowed to make you can make pencil marks on it, Your Honor. If you could please enable that. Which side, looking at this diagram, is the east side? And if you could just do the same for the west side. Now, did you also break up the third floor into quadrants just as Detective Christian did?
Yes.
Okay. And as Detective Christian, did you start with the 10th quadrant on the far east side and work your way west?
We started on the west side
West.
with quadrant 1 to the east to 10.
10 is on the east, 1 is on the west.
Yes.
Sorry for asking a very confusing
That's okay.
Now, were you also tasked with taking photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Detective, I'm showing you it's already been previously marked as 2M for identification. Can you please take a look at these photographs? Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes, sir.
Are they a true and accurate depiction of the third floor of the Marjory Stoneman 1200 building back in February 2018?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in what's already been previously marked as states composite 2M into evidence as states 39, a composite of 14 pictures.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, states 2M for identification will now be in evidence. That is State's Exhibit 38, a composite exhibit of 14 photos.
I apologize, Your Honor, states 30. Now, Sergeant, I'm going to show you the first picture. Do you recognize this picture?
Yes.
What are we looking at here?
Looking at, well, I'm inside the teacher's lounge.
The teacher's lounge, now referring back to what's already in evidence is states 22. Do you recognize this diagram of the third floor?
Yes, the teacher's lounge is right here.
Can you please, thank you, mark where it is. Which direction are we facing when we look at this photograph?
You're facing west.
Now looking at the second picture. What are we looking at there?
You're looking at the parking lot,
And which way are we facing there?
west.
Do you see the football field?
Yes.
Now the third picture. What are we looking at here?
It's the area where you walk through to go towards that football field that you saw.
Is that facing southbound?
This no.
This is still facing west.
Yes.
Okay. And at the bottom of the screen, do you see projectile strikes? What would you call those?
Yes.
Projectile strikes?
Mhm.
Okay. How many do you see here, or how many do you count for?
And there could be fragments that could have also struck it, but that would have, I would say that's for sure 2, possibly 5.
How many shell casings did you recover from the teacher's lounge?
The teacher's lounge, I've referred to my notes, because there was one inside of, there's an extra room in that teacher's lounge.
Okay.
So,
Looking at the diagram, you
Right.
marked earlier where the teacher's lounge is. Do you mean the bathrooms, or do you mean where it says 1240A?
well, it says 1240A, there was one,
Sorry. You can do it now.
it was right here.
So there was one shell in there,
Yes,
and in the teacher's lounge, the rest of the teacher's lounge, how many shells did you?
there was, a total of 9.
I'm going back to the photographs. Is this still within the teacher's lounge?
That one, yes.
Facing southbound?
No,
Do you see the building to the left side over there?
yes,
Okay. Showing you the next, which is, do you recognize that?
yes.
Okay. How many projectile strikes do you see in that photograph?
Possibly 4. Can you move the
Oh, I'm
photograph
sorry.
up?
Yes, I apologize.
Thank you, yes, 4.
Now, in terms of the projectile strike, let me see if I can get a little bit closer. This one here, does that look different from that one there, for instance?
Yes,
What could account for that?
the distance, the force it hit the window, the fragmentation, I mean, I'm not an expert in this area.
Do you see in this photograph, do you see kind of like the football field with the soccer nets in the background?
Yes.
Facing west.
Yes,
Looking at the next photograph. Zoom out a little bit. Is that similar to the picture we just saw before?
yes, it is.
Okay, and do you see the football field and the soccer nets behind it?
Yes,
Now looking at the next photograph. Is this from the third floor as well?
yes,
Okay. Do you recall which window we're looking at here?
it's the hallway window.
The hallway, not the teacher's lounge. right?
No,
And do you see how many projectile strikes are on the window panes?
on the window panes, you said?
Yeah, the windows itself.
The window itself?
Yes.
There's 5.
Do you, when you see a strike, I'm going to try to zoom in as much as I can here. Do you mark it with like a little sticker?
Yes, those are my measurements.
Okay, those are the measurements. So is that the little card that
Yes.
you utilize? Okay. Now looking at the next picture. Zoom out. What are we looking at here?
Documentation of that window and that whole wall?
Is that same hallway, the west side of the third hall?
Yes,
Okay. These markings, for instance, up here, or over here, or down here, what are they indicating?
they indicate possible strike marks
Okay.
and measurements.
Could you actually see like basically holes in the wall?
There's going to be some type of a disturbance.
Okay. Now looking at the next
Omar?
photograph. Is that a similar picture, just taken at a different angle?
Yes,
Now to the right, the door that you see to the right, is that the teacher's lounge?
yes,
Now looking at the next photograph. Do you see what classroom number that is?
yes, 1255.
And do you see the name on the door that's kind of written down? Over here?
Miss LaPel?
Do you see any projection strikes or any bullet holes in this particular picture?
Yes,
Can you just circle them and highlight them for the jurors? Looking at the next picture, is that the same room but with the door open?
yes.
What's the purpose of what's the purpose of the yellow tape kind of behind the door? Do you see it there?
It's measurement.
What's the importance of measurements in regards to crime scene investigation?
You need to recreate the scene.
Now looking at the next photo, do you recognize this?
Yes,
Is that in Ms. Lapel's room, the same room, the 1256?
Yes, that's the other side of that wall.
Okay. Do you see, I know there's a glare, do you see projectile strikes in this photograph?
Yes,
Could you please circle them for me? Thank you. Now, you also took photographs of the hallways themselves, correct?
yes,
Looking at the photograph here. Do you see any of the shell casings that you collected?
yes.
Could you please circle some of them? Now, this item right here, what is that?
That's a magazine.
Magazine utilized in a rifle,
Yes,
and that's what contains
that's what,
the bullets. Okay. Now, showing from a different angle. Do you see additional shell casings?
yes,
Could you please circle them for the jurors? Do you see any on the far right side, bottom right side?
yes.
Now, just for clarification purposes, looking at what's already been put into evidence as states 17. Which side of the building was that on that we were just looking at?
That was the east side of the building.
Okay, so could you just mark which side that was on?
Okay, I'm turned around with this photograph. It would be this side here.
The east side.
Yes,
Now, you testified earlier breaking it down into quadrants. Quadrant 10 being the farthest to the east. How many shells did you recover from quadrant 10?
quadrant 10 was,
Yes.
quadrant 10 was none. It was like a half a quadrant.
Okay, so you recovered
From quadrant 10, none.
none. Quadrant 9.
I'm referring to my notes to be accurate. Quadrant 9, I recovered 11.
Quadrant 8, and hold on, you know what, actually, hold on one second, let's put this down. Can you just circle or mark for the jurors?
Somewhat where it's at.
Yes, so let's just start again with quadrant 10. And quadrant 9,
Quadrant 9 was right at the, about here.
and how many shells did you recover from there?
11,
And quadrant 8,
55 was about here.
and how many did you recover?
That was 17.
Could you please write 17? Thank you, I know it's kind of
Hard
hard.
to, sorry.
Quadrant 7,
Quadrant 7 was about there.
and how many shells did you recover from there?
1,
In quadrant 6. Did you recover any from quadrant 6?
no, 0.
0. Okay, so 29 shells from the east side of the building, is that correct?
Yes,
By breaking it up by quadrants. Okay.
28, right?
11, 17, and 1. So 29, right? 1, 17, and 11?
Yes, sorry, 20, yes, correct. My math.
No problem. If you can continue to go down. So quadrant 5, how many did you recover?
None, 0.
Quadrant 4,
4 was about here. That's 2.
quadrant 3,
About here. I have 6.
quadrant 2,
Four,
and quadrant 1.
ten,
Now going back, and I know you testified earlier, but in room 1240A, so at the top left-hand side, you recovered 1,
yes,
and in the teacher's lounge itself, you recovered 9.
9,
Were Were there any others recovered on the third floor?
No.
Judge, we can take the screen off for now. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Your Honor, just one moment. Yeah, you're right. It's 2 N, so we're not going to multiply. 2 N, yes. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Detective, we're now showing you it's been previously marked as 2N for identification. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
Is it in the same or substantially same condition as you, when you recovered them?
yes.
Okay. Which quadrant did you recover these from?
This is quadrant 9.
Quadrant 9, okay. On the east side.
Yes.
Your Honor, this time to say we request to move in states 2N, states 39.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, states 2N for identification will now be in evidence at a State's Exhibit 39.
Got it.
I really don't know what this witness is doing at this point.
This is vacuum sealed?
I
Yes.
guess
Why
we're
is
just
it broken
testifying
up
to
like
like
that?
the shell casings we
differentiate?
found.
Differentiated between the brands of the ammunition. So basically, in
I don't know
layman's
why,
terms,
but,
like you would have
okay.
sneaker brands, ammunitions have the same type of identifier, so they have identifiers, different type of ammunition.
And is that a common practice? And when you recover ammunition or shells of different brand numbers or brand names to do it like that?
It's what I do.
Your Honor, may I
That's
approach?
what I do. I like that answer.
You may.
I'm now showing you it's been previously marked as states 2O or OO for identification. Recognize this.
Yes,
What is it in the same, substantially the same condition as when you recovered it?
yes.
What is it?
Fire casings.
Okay, and this is from which quadrant?
This is gonna be from quadrant, label everything, quadrant 8.
Quadrant 8, so it's still on the east side.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will request to move in states 2O or OO and states 40.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, states 2O for identification will now be in evidence at a State's Exhibit 40.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I did forget to
Sergeant,
put
I'm
up
now
the
showing
poll
you
this
it's
morning
been
on my
previously
YouTube page.
marked
Thanks
as
for reminding me.
2P for states identification. Do you recognize this?
Yes,
Is it in the same or substantially the same condition as when you recovered it?
yes.
What is it?
It's fire casing.
And which quadrant?
This is gonna be from quadrant 7.
Quadrant 7. Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in state's evidence 2P, states 40.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, states 2P for identification will now be in evidence at a State's Exhibit 41.
Okay.
Your Honor, may I approach witness?
You may.
Sergeant, I'm now showing you what's been previously marked as States Q or QQ. Do you recognize that? Or do you recognize this?
Yes.
What-
Okay, we now have a poll question
fire
up this
cases.
morning. Thanks for reminding me
And
to create
are
one.
they in the same or substantially the same condition as before?
Yes.
Need a damn
these-
checklist.
Well, at this time, the state would request to move in Q as State 42.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, States 2Q for identification will now be in evidence that is State's Exhibit 42.
Your Honor, may I approach witness?
You may.
Sergeant, I'm now showing you what's been previously marked as State's identification 2RRR for identification purposes. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Is it in the same or substantially the same condition as when you recovered it?
Yes.
What is it?
Fire casings,
How many fire casings?
6.
And from which quadrant did you?
Quadrant 3.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in States 2RRR into evidence as States 43.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, States 2R for identification will now be in evidence that is State's Exhibit 43.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Sergeant, I'm now showing you it's been previously marked for State's identification purposes as States 2S or SS. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what is that?
Fire casings,
Are they in the same or substantially the same condition as when you recovered them?
yes.
Which quadrant did you recover those from?
This is quadrant 2.
Quadrant 2. So that's on the west side of the building.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in States 2S or SS in this at States 43.
44.
44, I'm sorry, apologize. 44.
Defense, any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, States 2S for identification will now be in evidence that is State's Exhibit 44.
Now, Detective, looking at what's now in States 44, why is it broken up into 3 on the bottom and 1 up here?
What do you mean? It's a
Well, 3 shell
3?
casings.
Right,
three
it's
down.
just different. Again, we just have different brands. And this is, so this is one, it was 1 PMC fire casing, and then 2 Lake City. And then we have, one was from the floor hallway, so it was a different area.
Got it, okay. And these were all from, I'm sorry, I know you said have a quadrant.
It was quadrant 3, 2, so it was all from, obviously from the hallway.
Okay.
Right.
Besides the teacher's lounge and the part of the teacher's lounge, the additional room, were all other shells recovered from the hallways?
Yes. And then the ones I recovered from downstairs that we talked about.
Yes, and downstairs, yes. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Sergeant, I'm now showing you it's been previously marked for state's identification as 2T or TT. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is it?
Fire casings?
Is it in the same or substantially the same condition as when you recovered them?
Yes.
Okay, how many casings are we looking at?
There's 10.
And which quadrant did you recover these from?
This is quadrant 1.
I'm sorry,
Quadrant 1.
Quadrant 1, so that's on the west side?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in states 2T.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, States 2T for identification will now be in evidence that is States Exhibit 45.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Sergeant, I'm now showing you some previously marked for identification. for identification as states 2U or UU. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Did you recover those?
Yes.
Are they in the same or substantially the same condition as when you did?
Yes.
What quadrant were those recovered from?
This is the room 1240.
So this is from inside the room. And how many shell casings are we looking at there?
We're looking at 9.
9 from the teacher's lounge.
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state will request to move in states 2U.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, 2U for identification will now be in evidence at State's Exhibit 46.
First witness.
You may.
Sergeant, I'm now showing you what's been previously marked as an identification as states 2V or VV. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is it?
1 casing.
Is it in the same or substantially the same condition as it was when you recovered it?
Yes.
Where was that recovered from?
This is inside that room from the teacher's lounge.
So the top, like the north room, the north part of the teacher's lounge?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in states 2V or VV into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor, no objection.
Without objection, 2V for identification will now be in evidence at State's Exhibit 47.
Why does this one have a box, whereas the other ones don't? Is there any particular reason?
No.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Sergeant, I'm now showing you for this mark for identification as states 2W or WW. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Wow, what is it?
2 casings.
Is it the same or substantially the same condition as where you recovered it?
Yes.
Where did you recover this from?
Stairwell.
On which floor?
1st floor
Okay.
landing.
When you say the stairwell, was it on the steps or was it on the bottom?
No, it was on the bottom.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move in states 2W or WW into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
States 2W for identification will now be in evidence at State's Exhibit 48.
So, Sergeant, how many rounds in total were fired onto the 3rd floor?
On the 3rd floor, we had 61 fire casings.
Now, as part of your job in the crime scene, do you also, or, I'm sorry, back on February 14th, 2018, when you responded as crime scene, did you see deceased individuals on the 3rd floor?
Yes.
Do you recall their names?
Yes.
Starting from the east side, quadrant 10-9 area,
Okay.
do you recall who you saw there?
Scott?
By Scott, you mean Scott Eagle? Is that, I'm sorry, for the record? is
Yes.
that- Okay. Moving further down west, who did you see next?
Kara?
Tara Laughlin?
Yes.
Laughlin. Who else did you see?
Meadow?
Meadow Pollock?
Yes.
And further down, who did you see?
It was Joaquin?
Joaquin Oliver?
Yes.
And moving further down, who did you see?
Jamie?
Jamie Guttenberg?
Yes.
And then further down, who did you see?
Peter?
Is that Peter Wang?
Yes.
And you're tasked with taking photographs of them and documenting any evidence in regards to their deaths, correct?
Yes.
Now, we spoke about what unit you were in February of 2018. What unit were you in previous to being in crime scene?
I was a road patrol deputy, and I was a school resource officer,
School resource officer. What year did you become a school resource officer?
2002,
2002. And you were a school resource officer from 2002 until what year?
2016.
For those 14 years, were you at the same school or were you at different schools?
I was assigned to one school,
Which school is that?
Cooper City Elementary.
Now, in order to become a school resource officer for the Broward Sheriff's Office, did you have to go through additional training?
I did.
And what did that training entail?
So I was a Cooper City police officer first. So when I came over to the Broward Sheriff's Office and merged, I was already a school resource officer.
Mr. Kilroy, let me interrupt you.
Sure.
We've been going about 90 minutes, so we're just going to pause on the direct examination. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a quick 5-minute restroom break. Please do not discuss the facts of the case, the evidence, the witnesses, and the testimony amongst yourselves or anyone else. If you leave the notepads in the chairs and step in the back for me real quickly, we come back, we'll resume the direct examination of the witness, okay? Thank you. Okay, we're outside the presence of the jury. Everyone can be seated. Real quick 5-minute restroom break. We'll be in recess for 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, kind of the same thing we've been hearing already. I mean, there's nothing really new here in some respects. At least, like, nothing new for us to analyze. You know, it's just further supplementing what the jury already knows, or further adding to the horror show of the thing, right? It's like, let's introduce the bullet casings. You know, the technical legal reason that we're trying to do this ostensibly is damages. Let's prove the damages, all right? So we can prove, oh yeah, shots were actually fired. Here are the bullet casings. But it's kind of just an emotional ploy. And you know, we're in day 4 of this trial at this point, and it's been the same thing kind of for 4 days, and I'm ready to move on to other things. You know, I don't necessarily object to the strategic issue of bringing in the emotional stuff. I don't know if they're trying to do all this stuff as a block strategically and then move on to other things. But it feels like at least I'm ready to move on to other things. So I don't know if I would, if I were thinking about this strategically, because I don't know every witness they intend to call, obviously. So I don't know if I'd go about it this way. I'd be somewhat inclined to think about breaking it up maybe and bringing another testimony and maybe coming back to it, but maybe that would be too jarring. Tactically, and sort of the tactics of the execution strategy, I think it's, again, it's basically perfect. I think they're asking great questions. They're eliciting what they need. They're letting the witnesses be the star. A little jargon heavy with this one because talking about sectors and, you know, throwing letters and numbers in here, and she's a little bit dry. But it's fine in its technical execution. So in terms of learning, in terms of people who are interested in learning how to do a direct and how to do a cross, I think these lawyers are very, very good at their job. This isn't necessarily the only way to go about it, but it's certainly a textbook way to go about it. So the tactics, I think, are fine. The strategy, not 100% sure on that on the state side. Feels like we've been doing the emotional thing for a while, and I'm kind of ready to move on to other things. You also have to be concerned, at least with emotion, obviously, that you don't want to cause there to be emotional burnout. You know, you don't want someone to be so emotional for so long that they become emotionally burned out. Maybe with dead children, that's harder, but it's something to be concerned about. You know, you don't want someone to become numb. And so you might want to think about how to deal with that. But those are strategic considerations. And I'm sure they've thought about it. And this is what they've tried to go through, and fine. But nothing really technically to help us, at least for me, in sort of the major elements of negligence, right? We haven't really spoken to his duty except obliquely that he worked here for 9 years. We haven't, if there's a contract that exists and we're trying to use the contract as a basis to create or extend his duty, we haven't heard any testimony about that yet. We haven't really heard a lot about what the defendant did and sort of the steps that he did take. We've heard about it very sort of obliquely again and referred to in redirects. It's like, oh, would you hide behind a bunker for 40 minutes? No, maybe 10 seconds or something, but not 40 minutes, right? So, this testimony, at least for me, is running a little thin. It's like I'm ready to move on to other things at this point, but that's me. So we'll see. Also, the ability of the police officer to be a caretaker legally is a little bit questionable, and I think the defense has done some good work on cross and sort of elucidating that he's not your typical caretaker. He's not responsible for feeding them. He's not responsible for checking in on them on a regular basis. He doesn't bring them into his office to ask how they're doing or check for bruises like on some sort of routine basis. So he doesn't sort of seem to qualify as a caregiver within a normal meaning. So I don't know. Lots of question marks for me all around. I'm ready to move on to other things though. So we'll see. I did like the judge's explanation of his ruling during this morning session when the defense lawyer was talking about wanting to ask the questions about what the sheriff had said about the defendant, basically being super guilty, and the judge saying that's not relevant. The judge's rationale made perfect logical sense. I think you could go about it. I think you could say, you could argue it the other way. And I think the judge would be probably protected the other way. It's a judgment call. I think the judge's ruling, though, makes perfect logical sense. It's like, yep, I'm on board as a court of appeals, right? That works. That argument works. Judges get discretion. It's just because a judge can do something and sometimes do the exact opposite doesn't necessarily mean that either decision is legally wrong, because sometimes the judge gets latitude and judges are afforded the latitude. So it's like, if as a court of appeals, you have to look for clear error. It's not enough that they're wrong. They have to be clearly wrong. So it's like, okay, yes, you can do this or literally the exact opposite of that. And sometimes that's okay. Yeah. So that also goes to my rule number 1 of litigation: don't piss off the judge, as I've expressed many times before, because the judge can rule for you and they can rule against you, and you would like to not give the judge reasons to rule against you. Antagonizing the judge so that they are predisposed to rule against you is a bad strategy. They might rule against you anyway, but you don't want to create any sort of psychological pressure that they might themselves not be aware of. You don't want them to not even be aware of their own biases. So don't piss off the judge is really good advice. So yeah. Judges may be slightly demigods. It is worth your time to recognize that reality. You can complain about it on your own time. When you're before the demigod, mind your manners. So, yeah. So this is supposed to be about 6 weeks long, I think. So I'm ready to move on to other things. So we'll see how it goes. And sorry again for the part where the screen was blank for like 5 minutes. That kind of thing really pisses me off. I always hate it when the technology fails. It always flusters me really, really fast. It's like when the technology fails, when I'm talking without the mic on because the mic just suddenly turns off or the screen goes blank or stuff like that. It's like it flusters me. Just want things to work, damn it.
Okay, I'm gonna go back on the record. This is State versus Scot Peterson, 197166 CF10A. I continue to have Ms. Gomes.
Thank
Mr.
you for the
Kilroy, Mr.
314
Klinger
of you who are
present
here.
for the state. I continue to have
Please
Mr.
remember to
Igor
retweet the link to
present
this
with
while
Mr.
you were,
Peterson, who likewise is
if you
present.
haven't done it, and
We are
if you have, why
outside
not do it
the presence
again?
of the jury.
Retweet people be like
Witness
it.
remains on
Uncivil
the
law
witness
still
stand.
kicking
State,
ass.
Anything else you need me to address?
Check him out now.
Before we proceed with the direct examination.
No, Your
Do I
Honor,
think the judge doesn't like the defense attorney?
Sergeant Crespo's,
Not in particular.
Mr. Aguilar's
The
line up,
defense attorney has given the judge a couple reasons to,
We have more witnesses after that here, but
You
Okay,
know.
you wanna do the Zoom witness?
but I think that the judge is
Okay,
being pretty neutral.
So we'll just have to set it the same as before, so.
Don't piss off the
only
judge.
people that are gonna be on the Zoom is Mr. Peterson, the witness, the attorney.
But the judge has been pretty good
Is
about
this
it.
a witness that requires exhibits?
No.
All right, so just the three pictures.
Nothing
Okay,
that I, as a court of appeals, could do anything about, let me tell you that.
The one that she-
right, we're gonna do exactly as we did with the previous state witness.
You know?
And again, it's a defense witness, so state.
I don't know that sometimes
Okay.
people fully
Defense,
appreciate
anything
that.
else you
It's
need
like,
to
the
address?
judge is entitled to a lot of discretion.
I didn't do it with the first
It's like,
witness,
is there a
Mr.
mistake
Kilroy,
I could do anything about as a court of appeals?
crime scene,
Nope.
but
Would I do the same thing as a
based on the
judge? Don't
questions
know.
that may come,
Can I do anything about it on appeal?
decided
Not a
on the direct
chance.
Examination, cross-examination, I'll ask you for a quick sidebar. And on the
So it's like,
defense,
okay.
I'll ask you if there's any questions that you want to ask this witness outside the presence of the jury or anything that I don't allow you to ask.
Oh, if you're an
in front of the
attorney.
jury, And I don't know what the.
Oh, if you're an
testimony
attorney,
is
no,
gonna be,
you don't want to lambast the
but
judge
I will-
ever.
I will make that offer.
Yeah,
as
you
to
want to
when
be,
you
if
set
you're an
the witness.
attorney on your own
Before the
time,
witness leaves,
means
I
that
have to
basically
send
when
the
you
jury
stop
out,
practicing law.
which I'm gonna send
I was
the jury
thinking
out
like as a
anyway,
witness or
because
something, or a
it's,
defendant.
If there's any questions.
Yeah,
that
if you're an
you want to
attorney,
offer, so it's part of the
You want to be
record.
real cautious on
Thank you.
Okay?
lambasting a
Okay,
judge,
jury.
even if you're not before the judge, because you know that you're before the judge again someday, and you don't want them to hate your ass. So, yeah, minding your P's and Q's as an attorney is always a good strategy.
Jurors entering.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Come on in. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Come on in. Once you're back in those seats, you may be seated. All the parties may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you using the notepads, I'll give you a moment to get the notepads back out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, when we took our quick restroom break, we were in the middle of the direct examination of the witness. The witness remains on the witness stand under oath. We're going to pick it up right at that point. Mr. Kilburn, when you are ready, you may proceed.
Thank you. Sergeant, going back to right before the break, you were an SRO 2002 to 2016 at Cooper City Elementary. Is
Yes.
that correct? You explained something about merging. Is that when Cooper City, who had their own police department, merged with Broward Sheriff's Office?
Yes,
Okay, so you were a Cooper City officer. When they merged, you then became a Broward Sheriff's officer, deputy, who was assigned as a school resource officer at Cooper City
yes.
Elementary. As an SRO, as a school resource officer at Cooper City Elementary, what were your responsibilities?
My responsibilities were to the staff, to the students, to the police department, to the parents, to the community, but primarily, obviously, the school. That was my zone, so school, you know.
And what were you tasked with doing there in that zone at the school?
I was tasked with with any police reports that came out of the school. I was tasked with any child abuse cases that came out of the school. I was tasked with teaching. I was tasked with teaching preventative programs, with participating in safety drills.
The teaching of preventative programs, what does that mean?
They were in different, depending on where you were at, different levels. Part of the program is to obviously teach prevention. And I taught the DARE curriculum at one point. I taught the STAR curriculum, and I taught the GREAT curriculum.
So DARE is drug abuse resistance education?
Yes,
Okay, and you taught that to the students? Do you recall what grade
yes.
level?
5th grade.
And what were the other two programs? I'm sorry.
GREAT program,
And what is that?
gang resistance education and training.
You're gonna have to say that.
Gang resistance education and training.
Okay, and what grade did you teach that to?
That's 4th grade.
Okay.
And I would also go to the middle school
Great.
sometimes and teach it to the 7th
Gang
grade.
resistance education and training, great.
Now, these
Oh,
programs that
Lord.
you taught, were you trained by Broward Sheriff's Office?
I think you need to work
teach?
on that one.
The program's GREAT is a national program.
Not being in a
and you actually
gang
go
is
to
great.
training to
Ah.
teach that program.
Now, that training, is that just for school resource officers? To the best of your knowledge?
I honestly don't know if it, you know, you have to be a school resource officer to take that.
While you were at Cooper City, and I understand it's an elementary school, were you permitted to do administrative searches?
That law did not come till later.
Okay, so let's talk about later then. So you're at Cooper City Elementary till 2016, then what unit did you go to?
Excuse me, then what?
You're at Cooper City Elementary till 2016.
Yes.
Then what unit did you go to at BSO?
I went to crime scene.
Okay. And how long were you in crime scene?
Approximately 5 years, almost 6.
5 years, so that brings us to about 2021.
Yes.
What unit did you go to after crime scene?
I went back to road patrol
Back to road patrol for how long?
for about a year and a half.
After that year and a half, where did you go?
I became a supervisor.
A supervisor of
Well, I
what?
mean, I've been a supervisor, but I became a supervisor over the school resource officers and the community outreach resource and education unit.
So you are you're currently a supervisor of school resource officers.
I am
In what district?
Deerfield.
Deerfield. How many schools do you have in Deerfield?
We have 5 elementary, 1 alternative, 1 high school, and 1 middle school.
So you have 8 schools that you're the supervisor of the school as a school resource officer sergeant.
Yes.
In that capacity as a sergeant, what additional training have you had in regards to being a school resource officer?
Excuse me, can you repeat the question?
What additional training have you had as a school resource officer as opposed to just a regular road patrol deputy?
I've attended multiple annual conferences. We've did specialty, usually, I mean, we did a 1 week.
Yeah, a tiger with a
extensive
mullet?
usually training before
Really?
we went back into the
I'll have to
school
look
every
this
year.
up.
And what is that 1 week training? Is it every summer?
They do it every summer before they go back to the fall.
And what does
semester.
that 1 week training encompass?
It depends on what is going on, and they bring in different speakers. The SIU is part of it, so
And what is
school
SIU?
investigative unit, our school board police.
Okay.
If there's any, state attorneys sometimes come in and speak to us. Truancy laws are, come in and are spoken about. Just different things of the matter, they speak about child abuse and, being able to know that, what that looks like.
And is that training focused towards school resource officers?
That training, yes.
Now that you're the sergeant for school resource officers, administrative searches. are those permitted to be done by school resource officers?
Yes,
What is an administrative search?
that they're able to check their backpacks. They're able to check, them. Because they're assigned to the school, they are allowed to act as like an administrator of the school if they're assigned to that school.
So if an SRO is assigned to a school, they can act similar to like a vice principal or something
Yes.
like that? On a regular, daily basis, are your school resource officers, the ones that you supervised, are they the only person permitted to have a firearm on campus?
I'd like to believe so, yes.
Well, permitted, allowed to.
Permitted, yes.
School resource officers, are they given long guns?
Rifles?
Yes, rifles.
Yes.
Pre-2016, so when you were at Cooper City Elementary, where did you keep your rifle?
At the time, in my car.
Okay. Describe how it was kept in your car. Was it in a lockbox?
It was, it was actually, it was secured in between the seats and in the front and locked. That's the way they had them at that time.
And were those issued by the Broward Sheriff's Office?
Yes,
For school resource officers?
yes.
You're wearing a vest today.
Yes,
What kind of vest is that?
made of Kevlar, bulletproof vest.
Okay. Can you just stand up for the jury if you would, please, Your Honor, if I may?
Sure.
Does it protect you in the front? You gotta speak up.
Yes, I hope so.
And the back?
Yes.
Okay. And looks like, is it the shoulders? Is there protection up there, or is it just a strap?
No, it comes from here and ends about here,
How much does that weigh, would you estimate?
about 12 pounds.
Okay. Is it your choice to wear that vest?
Where I'm dressed right now, absolutely not, I have to.
Okay. Why is that?
Because in this uniform, Broward Sheriff's Office says we have to wear this vest.
Okay. Going back to your SRO days pre-2016, did you wear a vest?
It was our choice.
It was your choice. But was it offered to all school resource officers who chose to wear a vest that
Yes.
they could? They were available, they were at the station or the substation?
No, they were with you.
No, I'm saying when you got that vest, you got it from BSO?
Yes.
Either from headquarters or from a substation, but it was given to you upon your
Counselor, does she
request.
need to be standing? Because if not, give her
Well,
permission to please
annually,
sit.
it's given to us, not annually, every 5 years. But we're measured and it is given to you before you go on the road.
Okay, so she's just gonna sit on her own initiative, I guess. Because council didn't give her permission to sit.
You also spoke
Bad
about,
counsel, shame.
SRO conferences. Is that an annual thing?
They do have annual conferences, yes.
How many would you say you've been to? You can ballpark this.
I've been to 9, 10.
What are taught at those conferences?
All sorts of new programs that help the school resource officer and being able to bridge that gap between the community and the students and them seeing, us being able to do our job more effectively as mentors. You have different preventative programs so you could possibly keep them, away from drugs. MAD is an organization that, one of the ones that was out there that we brought back, to the high school, and they showed us the presentations that they were doing at other schools. So at a national level, you'd see different programs that were offered by different states for students that you could bring back here to Florida or to your school. Also safety, everything that had to do with the school, counseling, safety, educate, lessons.
Your dare officer
Gun safety,
smoked
all
pot
sorts of
with
stuff.
the kids in the parking lot?
Is it just in regards to law enforcement
park?
component of
Wow.
your responsibilities as a school resource officer? Or is it also the other component? The mentorship, the teaching, things of that nature?
It all encompasses in one, it's all one.
Okay. your
A rifle-proof
supervisor, school
notebook.
resource officers, is there another program kind of associated
Okay.
with that? Development or something along those lines?
And a
Community
park at night
development,
behind the elementary school. So
Um,
probably in a
not
drug-free
associated,
zone.
but
So
we-
that's extra
I mean,
penalties too.
work in conjunction?
We work close, we
Oh.
work together with it, yes, we work
And
with
what is-
with the community, because it also involves youth.
And what exactly is that?
The Community Outreach Resource and Education Program,
And what's that primary focus?
to reach out to the community.
Okay. And does that work hand in hand? I understand it's a separate unit, but does that work hand in hand with school resource officers in
They-
terms of the outreach?
They can, yes.
Now, I want to go back to the responsibilities that you had in February of 2014. I'm sorry, February 14th of 2018 at Marjory, Stoneman, Douglas. I'm going to show you a demonstrative aid, which is identified as Defense F. Are you familiar with the layout of this?
Yes,
Okay. Now, looking at Building 12, this is where you did the third story crime scene
yes.
work.
Soccer
On the
coach got
third
the
floor.
whole high school girls team drunk
Going
before
south,
prom.
let's say Building 7.
What?
Were any of the windows shot out on the third floor, facing south?
I guess I'm
Yes,
running in the
no.
wrong circles, or
Did you
maybe
recover-
exactly the
Did you
right
see
ones.
any
Damn.
shot marks or any projectile marks coming out of any of the windows on the south side of Building 12?
No,
You saw a projectile, you saw them coming west, correct?
yes.
Just one moment, John.
Yes, sir. Okay, cross-examination,
No questions?
real quick sidebar.
High school track shows had a relationship with female runners. Everyone knew he was perv and did nada. Wow, that's disturbing.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you may step down, thank you very much. While the witness is doing that, the next witness is gonna testify using technology. It's gonna take us just a moment to get that set up. So I'm gonna have you step in the back real quick. As soon as we're ready, this will be a quick one. As soon as we're ready with the technology, I'll have you right back in the courtroom. Please do not discuss the facts of the case, evidence, witnesses, or testimony amongst ourselves or anyone else till we reach the end of the case. If you leave the notepads in your chairs and just step in the back one moment, I'll be right with you. Thank you.
I thought the state only had the one witness that was going to testify remotely. Okay.
Okay, we're outside the presence of the jury. Everyone can be seated.
I don't know what the defense is thinking at this particular point. As to the detectives, who came in after the fact, they wouldn't be able to testify to like echoes or the fire alarm or confusion of the day. So there just may not be any questions for the defense to ask of the detectives. They wouldn't have any information or knowledge that would be helpful to any of their theories of the case. So maybe that's why they're not asking any questions. There's just nothing to ask. Makes sense, right? I'm not sure the defense can ask any of the questions to the detectives. Can't ask any of the questions. Isn't it true that the hallways echo? Did you hear shots echo? Did you hear the fire alarm? You know, didn't you have problems with the radio? I mean, detectives probably don't have any information to offer that would be helpful to the defense. Well, it's just what I think. So yeah, basically just kind of the same old we've been hearing, and now we're hearing about the actual,
You can see me, can you?
shell casings that were found, which I don't know how that's really helpful to much of anything. How's everyone else doing today? Everyone having a good day today here in Uncivil Law World? Hope things are going well in your world wherever you happen to be today. And thank you for joining us here on Uncivil Law. As always, do appreciate all the uncivilians who are here. Appreciate all your support as we continue to try to learn something both factually and legally in this case. It is interesting on the facts and on the law, so it makes it a good trial, I think, to cover. And we do appreciate every one of you who is here and helps the channel grow. And I try to be the very best presenter I can be. And hopefully, I can convince many of you to join me as a presenter. And I'm thankful for all of you. And please tell your friends so we can make the uncivilians grow. Scot Peterson is essentially being charged with cowardice, technically negligence relating to the death of a child/adult, and perjury, but cowardice. Faces up to 95 years in prison. I'm a new subscriber via Runkle. Keep meaning to, but brain fog sucks from UK. Day's going okay, although I just found out about bird poop on me. Clean washing. Oh dear. Sorry to hear all that. That doesn't sound good.
A.
Raise your right hand for me, please. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, you can put your hand down. Please spell your name for me, first and last name, please.
Yes, my name is Ana Ramos, ANARAMOS.
Ms. Ramos, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
And Ms. Ramos, on your screen, can you see Mr. Peterson? He's wearing a purple tie. Can you see him?
Yes, I can.
All right, and Mr. Peterson, can you see and hear Ms. Ramos? I can, Your Honor. And Ms. Ramos, can you see and hear Mr. Peterson?
Yes, I can.
State otherwise ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense ready to proceed?
Can I ask her something just for
Sure.
lighting purposes?
Ms. Ramos, one side of your face is illuminated.
She'll get the sound.
Oh,
She'll get the
hold on.
No, that's good. The
Let
fact,
me close the window.
no, we want both sides illuminated. No, that didn't solve the
Oh,
problem.
okay, let me turn on the lights. Hold on, please.
Thank you.
Let me turn on the light. Lol.
Maybe now?
That is perfect. Thank you, Anna.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Defense ready?
Turn on the light when you're, yeah,
So, ma'am,
pro
I'm gonna
tip.
have the jury
If
come
you're
back
going to be
in,
on
and then I'm
camera,
gonna
maybe turn on the
place you
light
on
so
oath
people can
again
see you. That'd be
and ask
good.
you to state your full name and spell your full name in front of the jury, and then we're gonna continue with the questions from the witnesses, okay?
Okay.
Anna, can I ask that you tilt the camera up just to get your whole head in there, please?
Yes.
Can you do that so we can get your whole head in there? Can you tilt the screen? Tilt the screen. You know what I mean by that? There we go. Now lower, okay.
Okay.
Lower it just a teeny bit.
Pardon me?
Go ahead. Just lower it a teeny bit more because there's too much head space. That's good.
Like this?
Fine. Yes, leave it like that. That's good. Perfect, Anna. Thank you.
Yeah, we're 5 seconds away from being law talk with Mike over here. That's a fair comment. I'm stepping on his shtick. We're all doomed.
Your Honor, you'll remind the jurors that what we're doing and
It's out of order by agreement of the parties.
thank you, sir. We're not waiving any of our motions.
Yeah, those are otherwise preserved.
If this turns into a throuple, I don't know what we're gonna do at that point, man.
Jurors entering.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Come on in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Come on in. Once you're back at those same seats, you may be seated. All the parties may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you using the notepads, I will give you a moment to get those notepads back out.
We've had jurors' faces exposed. Does law talk with Mike have that? I don't think
Ladies and
so.
gentlemen, welcome back. Similarly to what happened with an earlier,
Yeah.
based on the agreement of the parties, even though we are still in the state's presentation, we're pausing the state's presentation at this point, and out of order, the defense.
Okay, so the defense is calling a witness now.
Due to scheduling issues, the state has agreed to that
All right, so we're calling a witness out of order. So this is the defense's witness.
Using the technology. Ma'am,
Unusual,
would you raise your right
but
hand?
it does occasionally happen. So that's what we're doing
Swear,
now.
Yes, ma'am. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
So
Yes,
this
I
will be the
am.
defense's
Put your hand down.
direct.
Can you please state your full name and spell your full name?
Yes, my name is Ana Ramos, ANARAMOS.
Mr. Igosh, you may inquire.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Ramos.
Good morning.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Tell the jurors what city and state you're in right now.
I live in Denver, Colorado.
And did you ask us as an accommodation to Zoom you in so you wouldn't have to fly in?
Yes, that is correct. I request to be in Zoom.
Okay, thank you. And what do you do for a living now?
I work in UNF5, and I work in telemarketing.
Oh, great. She's a telemarketer. That really helps with the
Back on
reputation, I'm
February
sure.
14th, 2018, what job did you hold?
I work in Marjory Stoneman Plus High School. I work in the security department like a campus monitor.
And how long did you serve as a campus monitor for Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School?
20 years.
During the 20 years then, you would have overlapped with Scot Peterson for the 9 years that he worked there?
That is correct.
And did you work with Scott very closely?
Yes.
And describe for the jurors what was your working relationship like with Scot Peterson?
Like a campus monitor, we need to be around the school, observe and inform. That is one of the duties, and anything happen in the school, fights or smoking or any problem with the student, we need to communicate it with the Deputy Peterson, and also to the specialist, Mr. Greenlee.
Your job was different than Mr. Peterson's in that you did not have arrest powers, correct?
Yes.
Yes, you did not, or no?
Yes, it's very different.
Okay.
I do not.
Did you ever place any student under arrest ever?
Well, I need to take it to Deputy Peterson and he arrested.
Okay.
I don't have yes.
But you don't arrest anybody, correct? You don't have that
No,
power, correct?
no, I don't have that power.
Okay. And you saw Mr. Peterson break up fights?
Yes,
And did he do that without
many times.
Many times?
Yes,
Did he do that without even having backup with him?
no.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, if I broke up the fight without him? Oh,
No,
I'm sorry.
No, not you.
Ah,
Did you ever see Mr. Peterson break up fights without having anybody to help him? Did he do it alone?
yes, yes.
You saw that. Did you ever see him shy away from any violent encounters?
No, never.
Did you ever see him act like he wasn't
I think there were well more than
courageous?
2 people monitoring the school.
You know what I mean by
I
that?
think there were a whole
No.
bunch of campus safety
Can you
monitors. It's a
explain a
big
little better?
campus.
Did he ever act like a coward? Somebody who wasn't
No.
willing to jump in?
No,
Did you see just the opposite in him?
exactly. Always he was accountable. When we have any fight, any problem, he was there to help us like a campus monitor and support us.
And on a daily basis, how often would you have contact with Scot Peterson?
I can say every day, every day.
Because there were always issues that came up?
Yes, and because
This woman is
I
not
was
law
part of
enforcement.
security, and yes,
She's an employee of the school. She is not law
You had
enforcement.
different bosses though, right? You got paid by the
Yes.
school, yes? And
Yes,
you got
that
paid
is
by the
correct.
police department, correct?
if I get paid for the police department, no, I get paid. Oh, I'm sorry.
You got paid by the school, correct?
Exactly.
That's who your employer was, correct?
Yes, yes,
You do know Scot Peterson's voice, correct?
yes.
How is it that you know Scott's voice?
Well, working with him daily, I recognize his voice anywhere in the phone, in the radio, even if he's behind me talking. I know it's Deputy Peterson. It's coming behind me.
How often would you hear him talk on the school radio, for example?
Every time when we need him, he was in the radio.
Okay. So back to February 14th, 2018, where were you when the alarm went off?
I was in the second floor above front office is 100 building, 200 building in the hallway.
All right, and I failed to specify. There was an alarm earlier that day, correct?
Yes, that day in the morning, we have a fire drill and we did all the procedure when we have a fire drill. We went out, we wait for everybody go out and clear the hallways and rooms and come back again.
So I was referring to the second fire alarm that went off that day.
Yes.
Okay. Did you think that there was anything really serious when the fire alarm went off?
No.
How come?
The second one, no.
How come not the second one?
Because we have a student like for a month or 2 months. At the same time, he was pulling off the alarm and was false alarm. Just he did it for fun. And that was very confused to everybody, including myself. We have already the fire drill in the morning and we have the second one that don't make sense.
Did I hear you correctly that there was a student who was just pulling the fire alarm? Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
So you
Yes, that is correct.
Is that what came to mind as one of the possibilities? Yes.
Yes, that was come in my mind. Oh my God! Again, the student pull off the alarm for hobby. Yes.
When did it occur to you that this was something more severe?
When I heard Deputy Peterson call, correct, please, everybody go back. This is the time. I realized that was serious. That was a joke.
I see you getting emotional. How come?
Because it's hard. And it's like I remember him calling in the radio, correct. And I remember his voice was emotional. He was like his regular voice. He was in shock and he was like advise everybody go back because this is something serious. This is not a joke.
Did I hear you correctly that you heard him say code red, everybody needs to go back? That's what you said?
That is correct. That I heard in my radio and was Mr. Peterson because I recognize his voice.
And the way that go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, I cut you off. Go ahead now.
When I saw him the next week in Chris Hickson funeral service, I approached him and I say thank you because he.
Yeah, that's sustained. Go ahead, Mr. Agash. Ask your next question.
So
I'm sorry.
The way that he said code red, everybody go back. Describe how did his voice sound to you?
He sounds like he was worried. That was real. He was like a worry to everybody go back because that was serious and we need to be covered because we get training in correct. We need to be inside in the room.
Now, after Scott orders code red, everybody go back. What did that mean to you in terms of what was supposed to happen with each of the students in that school?
My duty was to to take all these people that was in the hallway, take it back to the safety place, and everybody be, covered and be safe and well.
And did there come a time that you were ever spoken to by any investigators about what you had heard and what Scot Peterson had said over the school radio?
Objection, sir.
Yes.
No, that's overruled, and the witnesses answered the question. Go ahead, sir.
And did you tell those investigators what you told us today, that Scot Peterson ordered the code red?
Yes, I did.
And he ordered people, everybody get back into, everybody needs to go back? You told
Yes.
investigators that?
Yes, I did.
The way that you heard him say it, did you believe that he was trying to help save lives?
Yes, yes.
Did you see my client after February 14, 2018?
Yes, I saw him in Chris Hickson.
Well, that's a yes or no question. So
Yes,
that's overruled.
Go
She's
ahead.
answered the question. Go
Where
ahead,
did,
sir.
where
Ask
did
your
you
next
see
question.
him and when?
I saw him in Chris Hickson funeral, and I approached him to say thank you to save me and the students.
Yeah, well, at this point, it's sustained. Ma'am, just listen to the lawyer's question and answer his question, okay? She's answered the question.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir. Ask your next question.
He got what he
Was-
needed out of her, so
Hearing my
Fair enough.
client say, code red, everybody needs to go back, the only thing that you heard him say on the radio that day.
Yes,
Was there any further conversation that my client had on the radio with anybody else that you heard?
at that moment, I was worried, to take care of the student that was in the hallway.
Yes.
Maybe he says something, but really I don't hear anything because everybody was screaming and yelling in the hallway and was hard to hear.
So I'm fast forwarding, a while later, were you still monitoring your school radio? Yes or no? Were you still monitoring?
Yes,
everything?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Did you ever hear him have any discussions with Assistant Principal Morford?
yes. He requests to Mr. Morford go to the camera
Hold on,
rooms.
no, you're asking her what Mr. Peterson said.
Yes.
All right, no, that's not hearsay. That's overruled. Go ahead, ma'am. You can say it again?
Objection is a self-serving hearsay.
No, that's overruled. Go ahead, ma'am. You can answer the question.
Yes, he requests to Mr. Morford to go to the camera rooms to see what he can see in the cameras
When you
in the
say he-
building.
When you say he, you're saying Scot Peterson.
Yeah, Deputy Peterson requesting the radio to Mr. Morford go to the camera rooms.
Okay. And that was your understanding to watch surveillance to try to find out where the shooter or shooters were located, correct?
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. And you're certain, of course, that was what my client said to Mr. Morford, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
And the final area I want to cover with you is, even before February 14, 2018, you know the layout of the school because you've been there for 20 years, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Have there ever been times where you've heard sounds, loud sounds, and not been able to discern where they're coming from?
Yes.
Explain to the jurors those circumstances and what happened.
This is a big school, and it's very hard when we have especially when we have a fight or something, to locate it. Where is that screaming coming from? Because is the echo is so, how to say, it's too much echo, and it's very hard to find the point where this coming that sounds, the original place.
The echo that you speak of, would that be including the area between the 7 and 800 building?
Yes, yes.
Would it include that hallway right there?
Yeah, that hallway is a lot echo, yes.
Would it also include the area around the 1200 and 700 building?
Yes.
Are there times?
More in 7 and 8 than 12 and 13, Jim. Mhm.
Okay. And there are times, though, that you've heard loud noises, and have there been times where you don't even know whether it's coming from the left or from the right? Yes?
Yes, that is correct, yes.
And so that if you just went to the right, you'd literally be guessing, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Nothing further. Anna, thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Ramos.
you're welcome.
All right, state cross-examination. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good morning, Ms. Ramos. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you, and you?
I tend to speak pretty quickly. If you need me to slow down, just please let me know.
Thank you.
Now, when you were working at Marjory Stoneman Douglas back in 2018, you knew that Scot Peterson was the assigned Broward Sheriff's Office School Resource Officer for your school, right?
Yes.
And as a security monitor, you didn't carry a firearm, right?
No.
In fact, only Mr. Peterson had a firearm on campus, correct?
That is, yes.
Now, when the fire alarm went out, were you inside of a room or were you outside the hallway?
How's he able to lead? He's on
the
cross-examination.
100 building.
I was
It's cross-examining.
outside in front of
Defense
media
witness, he's
center,
crossing.
outside in the hallway.
Okay. Was the
Wait,
fire
what do you mean
alarm
how's he
was
allowed to lead? It's
loud, though,
cross-examination.
correct? Kind of like an 8 out of 10?
Yes, 8.
8 out of 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll have to say yes or no for the record, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
Okay. Now, when you heard, or when the fire alarm was going off, was there a lot of people speaking over the radio? The school radio?
Well, when we have the rule, when the fire alarm come, not everybody need talk at the same time, only the AP. Because if everybody talk, it's a chaos. But yes, that day was different.
On that day, let me ask you this, on that day, a lot of people were speaking over the radio, correct?
Yes,
Did you hear Elliot Bonner over the radio?
no, I'm not.
You never heard Elliot Bonner announce a code red?
No,
You really want to impeach her on
Did
this?
you hear Assistant Principal Porter call a code red over the PA system?
because I was in the hallway. We don't have a speaker in the hallways. I never heard him call red. The only thing I heard from Porter was we need to go out when the alarm come off.
So you heard him say
Evacuate.
evacuate.
Yes,
Where were you when that call came out from AP Porter?
I was in the same place by media center, second floor hallway.
In the hallway. So
Yes, I was walking to go like for 100 because I need to check all my buildings assigned to make sure everybody go out.
Okay, so you heard over the loudspeaker, Mr. Porter say evacuate, but you never heard over the loudspeaker, Mr. Porter say code red. Is that correct?
I heard Mr. Porter say in the radio, but not in the speaker because we don't have speakers in the hallways,
Understood.
in the old building.
How many other people over the school radio did you hear call out or mention code red?
The only person that day I heard was Deputy Peterson.
Did you hear Coach Aaron Feist over the radio?
Yes,
And I'm sorry, you can take a moment, Ms. Ramos. If you,
it's okay. Yes,
did you hear Coach Feist? Did he say something over the radio?
yes.
What did he say?
We have a call before in the radio. They say something happened in the 1200 building. Sounds like a firecracker. And I heard like a minute after he said, that don't sound firecracker. This is something else.
So you heard Coach Feist say, this doesn't sound like firecrackers, this is something else.
Yes.
Now, you testified when Mr. Eiglarsh was asking you questions that your duty was to get the students out of the hallway. That was your job.
Yes.
And you did that to protect your students. Is that
Yes.
correct? You took action to keep them out of the hallways.
Yes.
Now, you testified earlier that AP Morford, Jeff Morford, was told to go to the camera room by Mr. Peterson.
That is correct, yes.
Jeff Morford also told Mr. Peterson to look at the 1200 building, correct, over the radio? Do you recall
Yes,
that?
yes,
So Mr. Peterson told Morford 1200 building.
yes.
How soon after, and you can estimate this for me, Ms. Ramos, how soon after the fire alarm went off did Mr. Peterson tell Assistant Principal Morford that? You can estimate for me.
Like maybe 5 minutes. I really,
That's okay.
I don't remember.
I'm not going to hold it to you. I'm not going to hold it to you. Hold it against you. I'm just asking. 5 minutes. Okay.
It can be more because really that was a lag. I don't know. Sorry.
Are you familiar with the video system at the school?
No,
You're not. Okay.
I never use it.
No. Okay.
No.
Now, the school radio that you used, was it the type that you have to charge?
Yes.
Okay. When did you charge it? When did you?
Every night.
So you did it at night, not while you were at work.
No, because I charge it at my house. Well, at that point, I think I need to leave it in the office. No, I bring the radio home and I charge it at home.
Is that so that when you're at school and if something comes over the radio, you're going to have the radio right near your ear?
Exactly. Yes.
Now, you were asked by Mr. Eiglarsh about the 700, 800, and there's an echo. And you were explaining a previous situation where you heard that echo.
Yes.
All that? In that previous situation, or in any situation when you were a security monitor, if there was the echo, did you move towards the sound of whatever was going on to figure out what was going on?
Yes.
Was it common sense to move when you can't hear something?
Yes. To look from where is that sounds coming from.
And why is that important?
Because I need to identify from where is that sounds coming and the problem, and is a fight or anything else? Yes.
Has there ever been a situation where you heard an echo, where you heard a noise, and you just stayed put for 48 minutes?
Can you repeat?
Was there ever a
45 minutes?
situation? I'm sorry, can you hear me?
You got it.
Yes.
The microphone's on. the
Sorry,
podium.
sorry, my fault. Was there ever a situation when you were a security monitor during a fight or any other incident on campus where the echo was affecting you being able to hear, but you stood in the same spot for 48 minutes?
No.
Because you went to the sound of what was ever.
Anytime they
whatever was
want to
going on.
introduce
Yes.
actual evidence that the defendant stood in the same space for 48 minutes would be just fine by me, by the way. They keep alluding to it. Anytime they want to actually offer evidence that that happened, that'd be great. That would be great.
The school radio dispatch, that is not recorded, correct?
Yes. It's not recorded.
They keep teasing me. Just offer the damn evidence, please, so I can actually factor it into the analysis. Damn.
Aaron Feist was not armed that day, correct?
Would be sure nice if someone
No.
could actually tell me about
Kudo
that.
was,
Oh, Lord.
Was Chris Hickson armed that day with a firearm?
No.
Was Brian Stobley armed?
You
with
sure
a
we'll see the
firearm?
video 20 times before the
No.
trial's over? You're probably right.
Was David Taylor, another security monitor, armed with a firearm?
No.
Was Kelvin Greenleaf, the security specialist, was he armed with a firearm?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos.
Based on that, any
You're welcome.
regrets? Go ahead, sir.
Can I log out?
Yep, hold on, man. Couple more
Oh,
questions.
okay. I'm sorry.
You'll be done quickly, Ms. Ramos. Just a few more questions, okay? Are you certain that it was my client who brought up the 1200 building first, or could it have been Mr. Morford who brought up the 1200 building as he's reviewing the videotape?
Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yes. We can ask Mr. Morford, but I want to ask you, ma'am. Are you certain that it was my client who brought up the 1200 building first to Mr. Morford, or could it have been
Yes.
Mr. Morford? You're certain it was that, okay? And in
Yes.
spite of my client bringing that up to Mr. Morford, did you ever hear my client say he was certain that shots were coming from inside the 1200 building, or did it indicate to you that he wasn't sure and he needed him to?
I don't remember that. I'm sorry.
Okay. And when the prosecutor brought up a scenario about an echo, there was never a situation, was there, where for 48 minutes you couldn't tell precisely where the sound was coming from, right?
Yes, that is correct.
There were
You can.
times where you were limited in time, but you had to stand still until you had more stimulus, more something to let you know whether to turn left or right or go straight or go backwards, correct?
Yes.
And that's because of the unique echo that exists in that area, correct?
Yes.
And finally, while the prosecutor did say there were a number of people talking over the school radio that day, you remember when he asked you about that?
Yes.
And you did hear other people's voices, correct?
Yes.
Are you 100% certain that you heard my client order the code red and order everybody to get back?
Yes, I heard Deputy Peterson call red, everybody go back.
Thank you.
I am 100% sure.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. All the best to you. Thank you.
Say, based on that, any recross?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right, defense, is the witness excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, ma'am, you're all set. Thank you very much. I appreciate your
Okay,
patience.
thank you.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
gonna
thank
end
you.
the video call.
What's
at
for
this
lunch?
Hi.
Steak. Steak. It's steak week. I have lots of steak. I bought lots of steak. I bought like 12 pounds of steak. It's steak week. What's for lunch? Steak. What's for dinner?
Okay,
Steak.
Steve, you ready to call your next witness?
What's for breakfast? Possibly steak.
Yes, Judge.
Go ahead, let's start with the next witness.
Yeah, we're gonna call a shorter witness.
Go ahead.
The state would call Captain DeRosa.
All right, Joe, we're back to the prosecution's case in chief. So we're back to prosecution witnesses. So that's good. Just a friendly reminder to the 330 of you who are watching, please hit that like if you haven't already. Hit that thumbs up. Engagement is good. Leave a comment in the YouTube video. Leave a comment in any YouTube video. Vote in the poll that's available on my channel today is about what language you might want to learn. That's fun. That's a fun poll. Share this on your social media of choice. Tell about it on the Twitters. You can retweet the Twitters. The link for the retweeting is right above. If you retweet, I will like you more because it will help the channel grow.
So if I could have you come all the way up here to the
I
witness
hope.
stand, please. Once you reach it, but before you have a seat, if you can just stop and look at me, raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. Sir, once you're seated, if I can get you to scoot that chair all
Yes,
the
sir.
way up as far as it will go, can you please state your full name and spell your full name?
Sure. Edmund DeRosa, EDMOND, DEROSA.
Ms. Gomes, you may inquire.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Captain DeRosa.
Hello.
Please introduce yourself to the jury and tell them where you work.
My name is Captain Edmund DeRosa. I work with the Coral Springs Police Department.
How long have you worked for the Coral Springs Police Department?
19 years.
Can you give the jury a little bit of a summary about your time at the Coral Springs Police Department, the different units that you've been assigned to?
Sure. I started off in road patrol, as we all do. Became a field training officer and was a CIT coordinator. I basically ran the CIT program for our department. Brought up to the Detective Bureau after that. Also joined the SWAT team as a hostage negotiator. Later became the team leader of the hostage negotiation team. became a founding member of what we call the BEAR unit, the Burglary Enforcement and Reduction Unit, and was then promoted after a 6-month stint in that unit to the rank of sergeant. Was a sergeant on midnights for a period of time. Was then sent to our detective bureau as the sergeant in charge of property crimes, which is basically crimes that are residential burglary, vehicle burglary, auto theft, things of that nature. After that, was promoted to the rank of lieutenant, serving on road patrol again on the day shift. Then became our health and safety officer during COVID, looking after the officers and civilians in our department, helping them in the event that they were ill. And then promoted to captain. I was first over our midnight shift, and now I serve over our day shift.
There are so many acronyms in law enforcement. What is CIT?
Critical Incident Team, or Crisis Intervention Team, I'm sorry.
And what are some of your responsibilities when you're participating as a part of the team for CIT?
For CIT, we mainly handle mental illness calls, go to calls and try to assist those there, and help the families get resources if they need them.
Now, back in February of 2018, what was your role at the department?
I was the supervisor in charge of our property crimes unit.
And explain for the members of the jury, if you could, on February 14th, where were you that day?
I was at the 7200 block of Sample Road, which is Coral Springs High School. I was assisting 2 of my detectives in locating a suspect that was believed to be involved with a series of arsons that were being committed in the city.
Were you interviewing students at the time?
The school had not lit out, but there was somebody out in front of the school, which the detectives believed that could be the potential suspect. They made contact with that individual, and we obtained his identification.
Did something notify you to the fact that there was something happening at Stoneman Douglas at approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Once I received the identification from the individual, I returned back to my unmarked unit and began to try to run the person on what we call our 2-channel or information channel. We use this channel primarily to verify someone's identity and determine if we have any history with them or any warrants for their arrest.
And what happens?
While I was waiting to provide the information on the person that I had, I was informed by the dispatcher on our 2-channel that they were receiving multiple calls from MSD reference to shots being fired.
What did you do in response to that information?
Typically, when we hear something that says they're getting multiple reports, we believe it to be true, and the demeanor of the dispatcher kind of changed, so I knew that she was concerned. I exited my vehicle and provided the information back to my detectives, informed them of the shooting, and then returned to my vehicle and headed to Marjory Stoneman Douglas.
How far were you approximately?
I'm just happy we can hear the
from
witness for a
Stoneman
change. That's nice.
Maybe 4 or 5 miles.
Approximately how long did it take you to get there?
I would say around 3 minutes.
When you arrived on scene, and let me ask, do you recall what time you arrived on scene?
I don't. I'm sorry.
When you arrived on scene, had the shooting already stopped?
Yes, I didn't hear any shots when I arrived on scene.
Now, describe for the jury what happens when you arrive.
I arrived on what is Pine Island Road or Coral Springs Drive in our city, but it's Pine Island Road in Parkland. I wasn't too familiar with the campus, so I parked on the southeast side because I saw a number of units going in that location. I exited my vehicle and retrieved my equipment and then made my way to the front of the school.
What happens when you make your way towards the front of the school?
We encountered a locked door, locked front gate. I met up with several other officers there and formed a small group and waved to a deputy that we saw on the interior side of the school to open the door for us.
The deputy that you saw on the interior was, I'm sorry, where was he standing?
To the left, and I believe that was the administration office. I was familiar with that one location in the school because I had been to it before.
Okay, just a moment. I'm showing you what's already in evidence as defense F. It's a map of the school, and Judge, I apologize for blocking you.
No, that's fine, go ahead.
Give you a moment to orient yourself with this map.
Okay, so there's, okay, I'm good.
Female prosecutor's
So
definitely
when
the
you
better of the
arrived, you said
two
that you pulled
between
up.
them.
Could you please
Nothing
show the
particularly wrong
members
with
of the jury
with the
where it
male
was on this
prosecutor,
map?
but the female's just a little bit better.
So I believe I parked right around here.
And at the time that you parked, did you know which direction you were headed?
Most of the activity and most of the officers were going to the north, so that's where I went.
Now, as you're driving to the school, you
But it's close.
understand
Someone could
that
have a
there
different
is
opinion.
possible active shooter on campus, correct?
Yes, that was my belief.
They're both
Explain
technically
for the
good.
members of the jury how the sound of gunfire would have altered what you did when you arrived on school.
If there was a sound of gunfire, I immediately would have went to where the sounds were originating from.
Because there was no sound of gunfire, explain for the members of the jury what you did next.
Well, I still had an urgency to get inside the school because I wanted to go in to try to either render aid or locate the individual that was responsible for the shooting. And since I arrived there and there was a gate, I decided to form a team, group of individuals, because I had that time to do so. If I didn't, I would have just gone in.
What happens once you form your team and you start to move through the campus?
The deputy that was there, I didn't know who it was at the time. I later learned that it was Lieutenant DeVita. I asked him to kind of guide us. The information that I had from dispatch at the time was a tall building inside the school. I asked him to direct us to where the incident had occurred. He said that he believed it was towards the north. We started making our way, but we were going to clear buildings as we went, and we were actually flagged down by, I think it was either an administrator or a teacher at another building to our right.
And what happens once you were flagged down?
We went into that building, the group of us, and we basically cleared or searched that building for anything that would be a stimulus or the suspect.
While you're searching that building, do you come into contact with anyone?
While inside there, I believe the administrator that was present said that he believed that somebody might have been upstairs on what was basically a balcony because it was a theater. There was a very narrow winding staircase leading up to that, and myself and Detective Troy went up that stairway and we located an individual on the balcony.
Do you recall which one of the buildings on the map that I just showed you was the auditorium?
If you showed it to
If
me,
I showed you the map, would it assist?
Yes, please.
Telling you again, states F.
Yes, I believe it would be building number 8. Okay, stand up. I believe it was that building there.
Okay, so you're heading north through the campus.
Correct.
And you cleared building 8, or began to clear building 8.
Correct.
Where in building 8, it doesn't have to be specific,
Okay.
but where within the building, if you recall, was this student?
If I can remember correctly, I know it's not, it would have been up in here because I believe the staircase was right towards the front doors.
And what happens when you encounter that student?
We ordered him to the staircase, we brought him downstairs, we searched him, detained him, handcuffed him, and tried to identify who he was.
Ultimately, was that the shooter?
We weren't sure at the time, ultimately no, but given the circumstances, we detained him. I left the detective there monitoring him, and then we exited.
When you exited building 8, which direction did you head in?
We came out again through the doors and then proceeded west, and then came around this corner and then proceeded down the corridor.
And what building were you heading towards?
This large building up here, number 12.
I'm now fantasizing about steak, so thanks for asking me what was for lunch, because now I can think all I can think about is steak.
What happens as you are approaching building
So I
12?
blame all of you all for that. one.
We are going down what is basically a large corridor, a breezeway, and we could see, individuals, officers, and people going back and forth. And as we're getting closer, I recognized a deputy in the breezeway,
Who was the deputy that you recognized?
Deputy Scot Peterson.
How did you know who Scot Peterson was?
When I was a detective in the property crime unit, not as a supervisor, I was assigned cases in the north end of the city. And our north end of the city borders Parkland. A lot of times my cases either had witnesses or suspects that were Marjory Stoneman Douglas students, unfortunately. And I would contact him to get information on those students or to arrange interviews with those students.
Where was Deputy Peterson standing when you saw him?
He was standing in the breezeway sort of towards the center.
I want steak. Steak is nice and tasty. Steak is good for uncivil.
May I use the other?
I want steak.
Okay, you should see on the screen shortly. I'm showing you what is already in evidence as state 16, composite 1 of 3.
Is it on? Is the overhead on? Ms. Gomes?
Yes. There we go. Okay. The east side of the 1200 building, facing the breezeway. Just a moment. Now this angle is facing south. Do you recall where Deputy Peterson was standing?
You see where that metal gate is, sort of like behind that gate there where, can I get up and kind of,
Yeah, you
Point
can
at it.
actually mark on the screen.
oh, I can mark on
Give
this
me
one?
1 second.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, so I just use my finger?
Yeah, Ms. Gomes, you want to use the erase function from the
Yes, I
previous
will
use?
do
that. Oh, okay.
Show the witness how to do it.
Okay, you can go ahead and mark.
Okay. So,
Let me go on Amazon and start
I'll
hunting for a new
select
air
one
fryer.
Feature for you, go ahead.
Just go to the Goodwill store.
So right around there.
That's what I should do.
Okay, thank you.
Let's take a look
And
anyway.
I'm now showing you what is in evidence as state 17, composite 2 of 2.
Here's a traditional
Oriented to
Convection
the 1200
oven.
Building, if you could just
Toaster
show
oven.
us where Deputy Peterson was standing, and I'm going to zoom in
okay.
on this
just get a
photograph.
traditional toaster oven,
There,
really.
your mark.
Right, really.
Okay, go ahead. Okay. Oops. And if you could point for the members of the jury where the 1200 building is, just again for clarification. And looking at this photograph, where would the football field be?
Oh, I believe it's to the west.
Okay, let me show you this photograph here.
Okay, here's one for 150 bucks from Amazon.
F.
Okay.
You could point out for the members of the jury.
I believe this is the football
Okay,
field.
so that's on the east.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that correct?
There's one for 70
yes.
bucks.
So when you arrived, Deputy Peterson was standing in that location outside of the 1200 building. Approximately how many feet would you say that location where he was standing is from the 1200 building?
60, 70 feet.
Maybe I'll get this one for $70.
Now you see him standing approximately
Amazon.
60 to 70 feet from the 1200 building. What is he doing?
When I came in touch with him?
Yes.
Okay, he was on his radio trying to relay message or
I get
something. I
delivery
couldn't make
tomorrow
out
if you
what.
ever know.
But he was standing there and he was looking in the direction of the 1200 building.
And did you say anything to him?
I did. I said, Scott, I said, what's going on? Where do we need to go?
Why were you asking him?
He was the school SRO, or at least he was when I was a detective, so I believed he was still the school SRO at the time. So I was asking him information because I felt if he knew, if anybody would know, he would know.
And what did he say?
He said it was somewhere, he pointed in the direction of the 1200 building, said somewhere over here or in that general area.
Based on him pointing you in the direction of the 1200 building, what did you do next?
Myself and Detective Schroy, seeing all the activity around the 1200 building, there's a stairway to the left, probably like right around there. And we went up the stairway, cleared the landing, and then looked across to see if we could have a better vantage point, to see if we could see movement in the windows or anything that could be of use.
And during this, have you heard any gunshots?
No.
What happens next?
Seeing no real vantage from that area because the blinds were drawn in many of the classrooms, and honestly, I couldn't even see in the ones that the blinds were sort of open. We decided to go back down the stairs.
And see what I can find.
I had another officer with me, Jeff Danak.
Get one for
I
like
told
10
him
bucks,
to
probably.
stay at that location, and then myself and Detective Schroy moved up to the 1200 building on the east side. So we went from there to there.
Why did you guys make the decision to change your approach?
Pineapple
South
in your
of the river
steak. There you
to
go.
Well, we could see the activity at the 1200 building. We really weren't gonna serve much of a purpose where we were at. we felt that could be more useful there.
What happens when you move towards the 1200 building?
There was a group of officers inside the stairwell already, mix of Coral Springs and I believe some BSO. And I saw my captain at the time was Captain Gallagher, who's now Deputy Chief Gallagher. But I saw him there and I asked him if there's anything I should be doing or anything that he needed. He said no, we were to stand where we were because there was already officers inside the building.
Was Deputy Peterson still standing in his same location when you went back to the 1200 building after leaving the 700 building?
When I came back the stairs was the last time I saw him and he was still there and then I went across to 1200.
Okay. So he did not enter the 1200 building?
There's a Goodwill store not
Not
too
that I'm
far
aware
from my
of.
house. In fact, there's a couple.
When you were in, tell me what
Depending on time, depending on
We were
how
told
long
not to
work
move
is,
because
man, maybe I can go in
the
lunch break
officers
and
already
get
being in
one.
the building. We were huddled in this stairwell and I don't know who, but somebody had a radio on and it was giving us updated information because they were looking
Any
at some
steak
sort of
cooking
video
time.
saying that the shooter was inside the stairwell, was
See what I
changing
can do.
clothes and was going to be coming down. At that point, we were preparing for an engagement with that individual. So we were all kind of pointing our guns up the stairs, waiting for him to come down.
Did the shooter ever come down the stairs?
No, it was kind of, it was strange because we were standing there and we're getting these updates and we're thinking, okay, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And then all of a sudden it was, he's westbound through the courtyard and mixed in with students. And we all just kind of looked at each other like, what is going on? And then, no, he didn't come back. He didn't come
So
down.
did you later learn that the shooter had actually managed to leave the 1200 building?
Yes.
And nobody had reported that he left the 1200 building?
Nobody within our group saw anyone leaving that matched that description.
Did you later find out that the video that was being watched was actually delayed?
Yes, we did.
Okay, can you explain that?
So
Need to get like a traditional.
once we
toaster
realized he
oven, that's
wasn't
what I need.
any longer in the building, somebody had to advise that there was a significant time delay in what they were viewing and what was going on real time. At that point, I took another small group of individuals and we tried to follow the path that the shooter would have taken, leading us all the way out to the canal, which ran parallel with the Sawgrass Expressway on the south side of the school.
So to be clear, once you realized that the shooter had left the building, you attempted to run in that direction?
Correct.
Which direction did you run in?
We ran, so we came from the stairwell and then proceeded down this corridor, or this breezeway, and then out towards that way.
Heading
And-
towards the football field?
Correct.
Are you running, are you walking?
We're moving very quickly because we already knew that we had officers here and we pretty much had officers up here as well. So we went at a very fast pace down that alleyway there.
Approximately how many officers were with you?
I believe 4 to 5. I couldn't remember everybody's names. I know Detective Troy was with me and I know Officer Chris Crawford was with me.
Was Deputy Peterson with you?
No.
What happens as you're running, attempting to catch up with the shooter?
We get to that canal bank. At that point, we make a decision that the shooter either went east back towards Pine Island Road, which there was a significant law enforcement presence there, or went west, which would have taken him out to Coral Ridge Drive, to the parking lot of a Walmart, 6001 Coral Ridge. At that point, I advised on the radio that we weren't going to continue our pursuit because ultimately we were so far behind him, we didn't see anybody on the canal bank. But I did alert officers at the Coral Ridge to try to detain any students there because the shooter may be among them.
Was the shooter ultimately caught by law enforcement?
Yes.
Do you know how?
He was detained a little south of that Walmart location, I believe, and by officers while he was walking in the street.
What happens once the shooter is detained? Do you remain on campus, and what do you do?
I do. Once we left the canal bank, myself and some of the members that were with my group, we returned back to the main campus and we started clearing classrooms as well as evacuating students.
Explain how many students you came into contact, ballpark, and what your interactions were like with the students.
It was about 50 to 60. I couldn't give you an exact number, but mainly it was fear that they were experiencing. A lot of them didn't believe that we were police officers. A lot of them were afraid to open the door. So, yeah, it was definitely traumatic. You could see that they were traumatized.
Judge, permission to publish what's already in evidence as states 6F9.
Does this require the TVs to be off?
Yes, please.
All right, we're gonna do that, and then we'll probably stop for a lunch break after.
I'll be done after that.
Okay, that'll be fine. Court Deputy Unic, we need all the TVs off, please. We good?
What?
The group of law enforcement officers that you were with?
When I first entered, yes.
Okay. And if you recall, what are you all doing in this moment?
We're coming down that breezeway approaching the 1200 building.
Can you explain to, as we just saw in that video, explain to the members of the jury what moving with purpose means?
We're basically trying to get to a location a little bit quicker than what you would do normally. So you basically have a reason for going to where you're going, and you have a purpose in mind to getting there.
And last question, explain for the members of the jury what it means to have motion to engage.
So when we move, especially around corners or places where we're not sure what's on the other side, we don't just like bump up to a corner and then poke our head out and try to ascertain what's going on. The training that I received and what we do typically as a department is what we call cutting the pie. So basically we approach a corner, not right up on top of it, but from an angle. That way we're seeing what's on the other side of the wall before the bad guy sees us. So when we're doing that, we're constantly, it's like a fluidity of motion. We approach, we cut the pie, and then we go. The other officers may stack up onto the wall until we've cleared that pie, but it's always a range of motion in which we're moving.
And is there a way to move with purpose and move to engage if you're alone?
Yes.
I have nothing else, Judge.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna press pause at this point. I'm gonna send you to lunch. When we come back from the lunch break, we'll resume with the cross-examination of the witness. Same admonition as always. Please do not discuss the facts of the case, the evidence, the witnesses, or the testimony amongst yourselves or anyone else. If you will leave the notepads in your chairs, I'm gonna ask you, please be back at the jury room at let's call it 1:50 p.m. 1:50 p.m., 150, okay? Have a good lunch.
150. So it's 12:50 my time. Cool. So I can finalize the thing to 12:45. So let's go into live and readjust for this afternoon stream. Great. That gives me just about an hour 10. So I might have enough time to go to the store. That'd be cool. Let's see. All right. So I need to change
Okay,
this.
we're outside the
schedule.
presence of the jury. Everyone can be seated. State, anything you need me to address before we recess for the lunch break? Defense, anything you need me to address?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay. Sir, you can talk to anyone you want about anything you want, just not your testimony in this
Yes, sir.
case. It's just like you're on the witness stand. Have a good lunch. I'll see
All
you
right.
at 1:50 p.m.
Thank you, sir.
1:50 p.m.
All right. Cool.
Okay, we'll be in recess until 1:50 p.m. I hope everyone has a nice lunch.
Great. All right. So that will take us to the end of that. And we will pause till then. And that will be good. All right. So I'm going to sign off for now. And we will be back on in about an hour 10. So we can do that as I try to figure out where the damn thing is to remove the overlay. Thank you. Finally got there. So yeah, we'll be back in an hour 10. This should automatically redirect you there as well. I need to create the link for this afternoon. In fact, I should probably do that while I'm talking to you so that I can ask you to retweet it. Well, I have you, so let's do that now. So many things to do, so little time to do them in. Okay, let's see. All right, so I need to borrow this. I need to delete this. I need to delete this, write new post, do this, make sure to put the right date in it. This is 12:13 in the PM this time. Great. I need the link for this afternoon's thing, which is somewhere. There it is. Grab link, go over here, post thing, change that. Fantastic. Put in a space. Great. Tweet. Fantastic. Now I need to copy the tweet location. Click faster. Click faster. Click faster. Load. God damn it. There's the link. Go to the live stream for this afternoon. Please retweet. No, not retest, retweet. Put in a little happy face. Great, link. Great, post, pin. Great, pinned. All right, now to live stream now. Retweet me. Here is the new link. If you'd be so kind as to retweet that. You click on that, click retweet for this afternoon session. That would be super helpful to help bring attention to the tweets and all the rest of it. That would be super great. So I will see you in an hour 10. This should automatically redirect you over there as well, so that you'll do that. And I will see you very soon. I've been on Civil Law. Until later, my friends, I hope all is well. Cheers, my friends, and goodbye.